Mayor Allen, it is now 6:30. You may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you. Call to order. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order? Councillor Moore, Councillor Maude Chapman, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of September 7, 2022 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. The meetings of council are still being held electronically, and residents are provided with the options to watch or listen to council meeting. You can watch live on the township's website at www.springwater.ca. You can listen to it during the meeting by telephone by dialing 647-558-0588 and using the ID 816-3811-8523. This option is available for the duration of the meeting. Those who are unable to watch the live stream can review the meeting at their convenience by watching the township's YouTube channel, and that will just show the video. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening on what we're dealing with? Seeing none. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore, that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act for application ZB 2022-12 Huron Creek Developments, 2022-10 Midhurst Rose Alliance, 2022-002 Johnson/McLean, and 2022-009 Ree O'Brien be called to order at 6:31 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw as amended. First part of the meeting is to present the amendment. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make an oral submission through the Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or a public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of a zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through myself as chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the township's website. The first item we're dealing with is ZB 2022-012 by Huron Creek Developments for 44, 46, and 48 Beverly Street and 31, 54, 58, and 59 Allenwood Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 17th day of August, 2022 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 50 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendments would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at 7 locations that are visible from Beverly Street and Allenwood Road. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notices of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from the township's engineering consultant, Ainley Group, in a letter dated September 1st, 2022, and residents of 52 Allenwood Road in an email dated September 1st, 2022. Both pieces of correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I will now call upon Greg Barker of Innovative Planning Solutions and David Reed of Tatham to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of the proposal, please.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Allen. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. And we can see your presentation.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you, Mayor Allen, and good evening, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Greg Barker. I'm a partner with Innovative Planning Solutions. I'm here tonight along with Dave Reed from Tatham Engineering on behalf of our client, Huron Creek Developments. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to present and consider the approval of a zoning bylaw amendment application, file ZB 2022-012, for 7 lots within the Elmvale Village subdivision to permit an increased lot coverage.
Greg, may I
Yes.
interrupt? What
Absolutely.
we can't see is you on the screen. Can you?
Yes, and I've hit there it is. I hit start video and now I'm just being prompted that I can start it by the host. So bear with me. How is that?
Good. Yep. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So okay. So for a bit of context for council's benefit and any members of the public, this slide outlines the Elmvale Village subdivision. Phase 1 is outlined in red, and phase 2 is outlined in yellow. These subject lands are entirely located within phase 1. The lands are designated as residential in the township's official plan and within the Elmvale settlement area, located along Queen Street West. As I mentioned, the lands subject to the application, they are located within phase 1. It lies on the western edge of the Elmvale settlement area boundary, as well as the County of Simcoe Paramedic Station, and to the west of Robinson Park. I'd also like to provide council with a bit of background. If you've had the opportunity to read the staff report, you likely would have noticed that there is a bit of background on these applications. But shown here, your worship and members of council, is the originally approved and registered draft plan of subdivision for phase 1 of the Elmvale Village subdivision. This was registered in 2017, consisting of 75 lots for single detached dwellings, as well as a series of blocks that you'll notice sort of around the edges of the property. So block, just for some context, block 77, that contains the new paramedic station. Block 78 is intended for multifamily dwellings. And block 79 it contains the stormwater management facility. The stormwater management facility received a provincial environmental compliance approval, or an ECA. The subject lands were also subject to a previous zoning bylaw amendment application. The lands are currently zoned as residential 1, exception 64. This zoning bylaw that was approved by council at the time in 2019 did not contemplate an increased lot coverage. So the standard requirement of 35% has been maintained. And since registration, a number of lots have been sold, a number of lots have been built, and many are now occupied. However, Huron Creek, the applicant today, they purchased a number of vacant lots and blocks from the previous developer in early 2021. And part of that purchase included, of course, the 7 lots that are subject of today's meeting, but also the phase 2 lands located to the south. So of the lots that were purchased by Huron Creek, 7 of them are subject to the application and are intended to accommodate bungalow dwelling units. The bungalow unit, when Huron Creek went to market, was among the more popular floor plans among buyers. And in December of 2021, we filed 7 minor variance applications to the township to permit an increase in lot.
No, he's frozen. Maybe he will have to turn his camera off. Mr. Barker, can you hear us? No. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm just going to stop his video to see if that helps. Oh, he has dropped off the call. So once we see him logging back on, we will add him back as a panelist. What you could do, if you'd like to, is wait a moment or so, or we can move forward to the public comments as well.
Well, let's wait a moment or so. He was just getting into the thick of his presentation, so we'll give him a moment. But you might suggest, is it better if he turns his camera off? Does that help the situation? Yeah.
It was nice to know that it wasn't actually my end for once, because as soon as that happened, I was just like, oh no, here we go again. So
Okay, clerk, let's go ahead with the commenters then, please. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding the application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are 2 commenters registered to make an oral submission for this application. Terry Gomez and Paul Badanis of 52 Allenwood are the first commenters. Terry and Paul, you may now address the mayor and council with your questions or comments.
1 second before you start, Clerk Ainsworth, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Barker has returned and I have promoted him to a panelist. He should be able to unmute himself now.
Okay, Terry and Paul, just pause and we'll continue and get back to you shortly.
I apologize, everyone. The power went out at the office, so a bit embarrassing, but I will pick up
Greg,
where I was left.
Greg, hello, can you hear me? Probably best if you turn your camera off in retrospect. That seems to help internet connectivity. So if you turn your camera off and continue talking, then we'll get through this.
Good. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Okay, so of this, so as I was mentioning, my client purchased 7 lots. They're subject to the applications considered tonight. Bungalow units are among the most popular from purchasers. And we filed 7 applications for minor variances to request consideration of an increased lot coverage identical to what we are asking council to consider tonight. These applications, the minor variance applications, were ultimately supported by all township departments, with planning staff recommending approval in May of this year of 2022. There were no objections from any internal.
He said it was at the office too.
I apologize. I'm not sure what's happening here. So the minor variance applications were. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yes, the minor variance applications were supported by staff. Notwithstanding, the applications were deferred in May and subsequently denied in June of 2022 by the Township Committee of Adjustment. And as council may be aware, the variance applications, they have been appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, it is our intention to secure council approval for the proposed zoning application, which would allow us to withdraw the appeals. So as mentioned, Huron Creek, they have prepared floor plans for bungalow dwellings. This has been selected for the 7 lots. Shown here are the elevations and floor plans for the homes. Bungalows, as I'm sure everyone can appreciate, they generally provide for a larger footprint than a traditional.
Mr. Barker, can you advance your presentation? We're back at the, keep up with the PowerPoint with what you're talking about, please.
Yes, it should be the slide.
Okay.
How's that?
That's fine. Thank you.
So yes, so Mayor Allen, the slide that's in front of you, is it the design slide with floor plans and elevation?
They're just now changed, yes.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, these are the elevations and floor plans for the homes. Bungalows, they generally do provide a larger footprint than a traditional 2-story. This is needed to accommodate all the living space on the ground floor. The plans provide for 3-bedroom and 2 full bathrooms across 1,681 square feet of living space and a total footprint of just below 2,300 square feet, which ultimately includes a 2-car garage and a porch. And I would note that one of the 7 lots, which I will show on the next slide, has a slightly wider garage proposed, adding approximately 150 square feet to the footprint for a total of 2,444 square feet. And so this slide here represents the 7 lots. The lots that are outlined in yellow, we are proposing to permit a lot coverage of 40%. The lot in red, we're proposing 43%. And all other zoning provisions that were previously approved by council in the R164 zone would be otherwise maintained by the bungalow units. And then this chart just very concisely represents the proposed lot coverage for each of the lots, including the actual increase in brackets above the maximum 35 that is permitted. Council should be aware that the proposed lot coverages account for the proposed homes, as well as the potential future deck for each property or other accessory structure that may otherwise be included in lot coverage. The buffer, I guess we would call it, would allow for a deck to be installed anywhere from 145 to 200 square feet. And the township has received and Committee of Adjustment has approved at least 2 other applications for increased lot coverage within the subdivision to account for decks. So we are aware that there were 2 previous approvals granted by committee from current homeowners to install a deck at their property, and we're trying to be proactive and account for that at this stage. A fulsome planning justification report has been submitted in support of the applications, which demonstrates conformity with applicable policy, including the township's official plan and zoning bylaw. All forms of residential uses are permitted in the residential designation, and the applications would support a mix and range of housing types and sizes, specifically bungalow dwellings, ensuring the subdivision caters to a wide demographic of individuals, including age and incomes, while providing additional opportunities for aging in place. The development would be serviced with existing infrastructure, including stormwater management, and maintains all other zoning provisions, including the permitted setbacks and height. We believe the approval of the application will foster a positive community character in a manner that is compatible with existing built forms. So in summary, The applicant is proposing to rezone 7 lots within phase 1 of the Elmvale Village subdivision. The proposed lot coverage increases are considered minor. They will support a desirable housing diversity that cater to a varied household sizes, ages, lifestyles, and abilities. And through technical review by Tatham Engineering and as supported by the township's engineer, the increased coverages can be accommodated under existing service levels, including the existing stormwater management pond without any improvements required. And lastly, Your Worship, it is my opinion the application represents good planning, is consistent with and conforms to applicable provincial, county, and township planning policies. And we would respectfully request council consider the approval of the applications as supported by staff. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for bearing with me, everyone. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, stay with us because I'm
Yep.
sure you'll be getting some questions. Moderator, please proceed with the commenters.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Like mentioned before, there are 2 commenters registered to make an oral submission, Terry Gomez and Paul Badenas, 52 Allenwood Road are the first commenters. Terry and Paul, you may now address the mayor and council with your questions or concerns.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to basically ask a couple of questions. One is we live at 52 Allenwood, which is will be beside one of these homes that they are asking to basically grant this extra footage. Huron Creek has come in here, by the way. My husband and I moved in here on July the 15th. We are very concerned with the big, huge homes that Huron Creek is building in such small lots. Right beside our lot, which is lot 60, 61 is one of the requests that's being made. We feel that these homes are basically going to intrude on our privacy. Our house is basically 1,300 square feet. And this home that's being proposed to build beside us is going basically, the sunlight over the side of my house will be blocked, including extending into the backyard, which will give us no privacy whatsoever. It is a much larger home than ours. I'm under the impression that the previous builder had a cap of under 2,000 square feet to be built in the Elmvale Village. The homes that are being built by Huron Creek right now are monster homes. If you would come into the subdivision, they are basically overtowering every other home in here and allowing those that are around those homes with no privacy whatsoever in their backyards, in their front yards. I'm very disappointed that this is happening right now. My question is, basically, was there a cap, and why is Huron Creek basically been giving these permits to and allowing them to build these big homes where the existing previous homes are nowhere close to even 2,000 square feet?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start with Mr. Barker. Can you confirm what the square footage of lot 61 would be? And in your understanding, before I go to Director Spagnell, was there a cap previously with respect to these lots?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Allen. To answer your question, the plan that is in the works for lot 61 is proposed to have a building footprint of 2,294 square feet. That includes a 2-car garage and porch. So effectively there would be 1,681 square feet of living space with that lot, and it would be it would be a bungalow, so 1 story in height. And I would point out that the bylaw that is currently in effect does allow a building height of up to 11 meters. That effectively would facilitate potentially a 3-story building. we're proposing a one-story, a bungalow dwelling at 1681 square feet.
Director Spagnell, anything to add to that, please?
Thank you, Marilyn. The only thing I'd like to add is that, to my knowledge, there's no form of a cap under the zoning other than the coverage provision, which allows for 35% of the lot to be utilized for building space. So any of the buildings that have been constructed in the subdivision that didn't require a minor variance or some type of zoning approval would have had to been constructed within the coverage provision of the bylaw. So there isn't something set in stone from the township's perspective that establishes a maximum area for the house. It's governed by the coverage provision under the zoning bylaw, which is currently 35%.
And we're seeing that the request here is for 40%, 5% more.
That's correct, Mayor Allen. In some cases, it's 5% more, but I'll let Mr. Barker clarify that. Thank you.
Mr. Barker, what's the excess over the 35?
Yes, for 6 of the lots, it is 5% over, and for one of the lots, it is 8% over. So 40% and 43% respectively.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Terry and Paul, with respect to that question. Councillor Ritchie?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Mr. Barker there. So if I'm hearing this right, the total footprint for this house is 2,300, and that includes the garage, but the house itself is about 1,600, give or take.
Mr. Barker?
Through your worship, that's correct. The plans that we have from Huron Creek, the living space, which wouldn't include the garage or the porch, is 1,681 square feet. But including the garage as well as a porch, which are part of the lot coverage and the footprint, would be 2,294 square feet.
Which is 50% greater than approximately the house beside it.
Mayor Allen, sorry, could you clarify 50% larger?
Yes, just rough math. We're told that the house right beside is 1,350 square feet.
Okay, yeah, and perhaps to clarify, Mayor Allen, Huron Creek can certainly build a 2, potentially 3-story building on this property, which could, I guess, in theory, be 3,000 square feet. That is not the intent. That's not what's being proposed here. But I suppose if that dwelling next door is 1,350 square feet, I'm not sure if that's just living space or footprint. But it's, our dwelling would be approximately 300 square feet larger of living space.
I'll go to follow on Councillor Ritchie and then get to the others.
Mayor Allen, I just want to follow on by saying, like Mr. Barker said, like if it's a 1,300 square foot home, you're building a 1,600 square foot home, 1,600 square feet is not out of the realm by today's standards. So that's a single story house. That's not that's not out of the realm. I don't see a problem with that at all. So I would support that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
No, thank you, Marilyn. I was just asking for clarification on the 1,350 for the adjacent lot, if that was including the garage and porch as well. I was just looking for clarification on that, but I didn't receive it. Thank you.
And Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Could I direct this, please, to Director Spagnell? I'm curious to know what the Committee of Adjustments had a problem with. Was it just strictly the small percentage of lot coverage increase? It seems not out of scope of what we see, regularly. So I thought maybe there potentially was something more.
Director Spagnell.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Moore. I don't want to speak for the committee. All I can do is outline what my impression was of what the issue was from the committee standpoint. The committee appeared to be concerned with the impact that allowing for the increased coverage would have on other residents located within the subdivision that look to increase their lot coverage. And that was more from the perspective of stormwater management and the ability of the stormwater management pond to take on additional stormwater because of added impervious area. I can't necessarily speak to the stormwater pond and what it's fitted for. I know that there was quite a bit of engineering review completed with respect to the stormwater, but my impression and of what the committee's issue was the impact that allowing these variants would have on the ability of future landowners to possibly apply for increases in minor variances on their property and add to their coverage.
Yes, 1 second, Councillor Moore, which is what Ainley was referring to in their letter. So does that mean there would be limitations on applications for such things as decks and sheds potentially going forward, Director Spagnell?
Mayor Allen, not being an engineer, I'd respectfully look to refer that over to General Manager Ramdeo, just to provide his comments as to what went into the engineering review and what the impact could possibly be to other properties.
Thank you, General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The stormwater pond as designed has I would explain it as a buffer between what is expected to come in and what it was built to. These 7 homes essentially would use up some of that buffer. Would it affect future applications? Applications will only come in to us if they need a building permit under the building code. So for example, any deck that is under 60 centimeters from the ground will not need a building permit. And any typical shed less than 100 square feet will not need a building permit. So that buffer is to accommodate those that will not necessarily need a building permit. We will never see it. The understanding that we had is any application that is coming in that will increase the lot coverage will be addressed on a case-by-case basis. And to answer your question directly, will this impact the future consideration? Potentially, it could. It could impact it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore, follow on.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think that answered all my questions. I think we see this fairly regularly in some subdivisions. I know down in Ward 4 we do too. So, but I've also seen us move forward with these requests. So I've had my questions answered. Thanks.
Okay, moderator, thank you, Terry and Paul. We'll move on to the next request to make a comment.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I did have a second commenter registered, but I have not seen them log on or prior to the meeting, so that I don't believe there'll be a second commenter for this portion.
Okay, members of council, any further questions, comments with respect to this? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Maybe I'm a little bit privy to the Committee of Adjustment meeting because I went back and I reviewed it. I can't say exactly the reasoning behind what they did, same as Director Spagnell, but I'm of the opinion and the mind that these are homes that already, my understanding, there's owners for them. And the way I'm kind of looking at this is, instead of 6 owners coming before us and asking for a variance to accommodate the 5% and 8% in one, which sounds to me like normally it would be something that would just go forward. They're doing it collectively. So I'm happy to support it. It is a single story, so it's well below what 2 or 3 stories would be. And as far as the lot coverage versus the square footage, as I have to apologize, I can't recall Mr. Barker mentioned they could certainly build a monster home with 3,500 square feet, and not have to apply for anything. So I'm happy to see these go forward.
Okay, thank you. I see CBO Verstraeten. Do you have a comment, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clarify that in Springwater, we require permits for all decks that provide egress to the dwelling regardless of the height from the ground, just so that's not out there. Thank you.
Director Spagnuolo, you haven't built a deck recently, have you? Okay, thank you for that clarification. All right, thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. We will be dealing with this further later on in the agenda. So next we go to, let me just check here. ZB 2022-010 by Midhurst Rose Alliance, Inc. for 2351 Gill Road. I'll now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 18th day of August 2022 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 17 properties in the township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendments would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Gill Road. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
And has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
There have been no items of correspondence received for this application.
Thank you. I'll now call on Corey Chisholm of MHBC to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of this proposal. You're muted, Corey. Unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can, and can
Perfect,
see your
thanks.
presentation as well.
Apologies. So good evening, members of council and the public. My name's Corey Chisholm. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning in Barrie. Also with us this evening is Andrew Webster, Senior Vice President with Rose Corp on behalf of the ownership group, as well as Opani Muthalige, Intermediate Planner with MHBC. So I have prepared a brief presentation for you, and then happy to answer any questions following that. So the application before you this evening is a zoning bylaw amendment related to the Midhurst Heights subdivision in the Midhurst secondary plan area. And the zoning bylaw amendment is in relation to a holdout lot that was not part of the original draft plan of subdivision or zoning bylaw amendment approvals. However, has since been acquired by Rose Corp and are going through the process to incorporate that into the approved draft plan, which surrounds this lot on 3 sides. And as I'll take you through the presentation, you'll see that the draft plan was actually designed in such a way that anticipating that this lot would be redeveloped in the future and that it could fit in with the lot fabric surrounding it. So just for context, this is an aerial of the site. You'll see the existing lot outlined in red, which does have 1 existing single detached dwelling. And it is just north up Gill Road from the intersection of Gill Road and Doran Road. And I'll have an image in a few slides that shows the context of the surrounding approved subdivision. So just some quick relevant planning history. The Midhurst Heights subdivision original zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision was approved in 2014. Since then, a minor red line revision was approved in May of 2019 in order to incorporate additional requested road widenings on both Doran Road and Russell Road. And currently, detailed engineering design is advanced for phase 1, and earthworks has actually recently commenced as the ownership group works towards registration of phase 1 next year. So this is the approved Midhurst Heights zoning bylaw amendment that's in effect today. And again, it's a very large site, so this is zoomed out quite a bit from our site. You can see in the left, just the small red box is outlining the parcel that the application before you affects. And the purpose of that would be to rezone it to the urban residential 1 zone. That's the zone that is in the hatching that surrounds the site. So that zone only permits single detached dwellings, and sort of the west half of the Midhurst Heights subdivision has that UR1 zone, and this would just incorporate that same zoning onto these lands. This is just zoomed in a little bit more. The photocopy of the approved zoning amendment's not the clearest, but you can see how that would just join the surrounding lands with that same hatching. So this is the approved draft plan of subdivision as it exists today. Again, we're quite far zoomed out from the property at 2351 Gill Road, which is subject to the zoning amendment before you today. However, you can see in the red box that the approved subdivision indeed wraps around it to the north, east, and south. And just zooming in a bit closer on that, you can see some faint dash lines. So on the approved subdivision, understanding that this lot was likely to be redeveloped and incorporated into the subdivision in the future, there were future lot lines dashed in just to show that those could be accommodated without having to move other things around within the subdivision. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, as mentioned, is to rezone the site from the existing agricultural zone, which it is today, to the urban residential 1 holding zone, which would be consistent with the surrounding development. So that zone only permits single detached dwellings. The minimum lot frontage of that zone is 15 meters, and the minimum lot area of that zone is 446 square meters. And of the, that would facilitate the creation of 8 single detached lots on the site. 3 would be fronting Gill Road. Those lots would be a bit larger. They would be 21.3 meters or approximately 70 feet in lot frontage. And there would be 5 lots facing the internal street E. Those lots would be 15.2 meters or approximately 50 feet in frontage. And of those, 2 of those lots are entirely located on this property, while as the remaining 6 are partial lots, so they would be combined with some of the existing parcels on the existing approved subdivision to complete those lots that were always contemplated. So this is the proposed zoning schedule. Again, hatched is the lands we're proposing to rezone from agricultural to the urban residential 1 zone. This is it overlaid with the currently approved zoning. So you can see there the lot fabric dashed in, and you can see how some of those lots are entirely on this site and some are partially on this site and would be merged in the future through a future part lot control application to complete those other lots. So as part of the application for zoning bylaw amendment, we have to review the planning policy context. So MHBC did author a planning justification letter in support of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. And in that letter, we identify how the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the various plans, including the provincial growth plan, the county Simcoe official plan, and the township of Springwater official plan, including the Midhurst secondary plan, as well as the township of Springwater zoning bylaw. So in conclusion, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, in my opinion, is consistent with the policies set out within the provincial policy statement, conforms to the various levels of planning documents that we need to review. It's in keeping with the overall aims and intent of the Township of Springwater's zoning bylaw. As noted, the site is surrounded by lands approved for residential development as part of the previous Midhurst Heights zoning amendment and approved draft plan. And for the reasons above, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment represents good planning and should be permitted. With that, that concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions members of council or the public might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who registered to ask questions or make comments regarding the applications.
Mayor Allen, there are no commenters registered to make an oral submission for this application.
Thank you. Do any members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, thank you to all that participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in the matter. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm.
Yeah, thank you, members of council. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next, we will deal with ZB 2022-002 by C. Johnson and N. McLean for 3772 Horseshoe Valley Road West. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 17th day of August 2022 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 11 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendments would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendments apply at a location that was visible from Horseshoe Valley Road West. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence with respect to these notices?
Correspondence has been received from the residents of 3784 Horseshoe Valley Road West in an email dated September 5th, 2022. The correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I'll now call upon Amy Powell of Powell Planning and Associates to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of this proposal.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Clerk Ainsworth, when I tried to start, oh, thank you so much. Clerk Ainsworth, will I be doing the PowerPoint slides or? Yep. Just gonna share my screen. Can everyone see the presentation?
Not yet. There we go. We see if different files. Yep. Yep. Can you make it full screen, please? Oops.
Yes, sorry, I don't know why.
There.
You
Good.
see the presentation now?
We do.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Allen, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Amy Powell, and I'm the Chief Planning Officer at Powell Planning and Associates. I'm a registered professional planner and the agent representing the landowner, Corrine Johnson, at this evening's public meeting for application ZB-2022-002, an application seeking relief from the Township of Springwater's zoning bylaw 5000 concerning the subject lands located at 3772 Horseshoe Valley Road West, located in the Anton Mills settlement area. For this evening's presentation, I will be reviewing the subject site's location, as well as its characteristics, providing a summary of the file's history, identifying how the subject proposal conforms to the township's official plan and zoning bylaw. I will also be identifying the relief sought through the zoning bylaw amendment, providing conclusions on the overall application, and both myself and the landowner would be happy to then answer any questions on the subject application. With regards to the site location and site characteristics, the subject site is located in the Anton Mills settlement area on the north side of Horseshoe Valley Road West, between Wilson Drive and Nursery Road. The site is approximately 0.4 acres in size. It has a frontage of 30.5 meters onto Horseshoe Valley Road West. The lands are designated settlements in the County of Simcoe's official plan and urban residential in the township's official plan. The lands are zoned R1 in the township zoning bylaw. These designations in zone all allow for the subject use, which is an additional residential unit. The lands have a single-story detached dwelling and a detached garage. The garage is the accessory structure, which is the subject of this application. The lands are surrounded by agricultural lands to the north, just outside of the settlement area's boundary, open space lands to the south, residential lands to the west, and residential as well as agricultural lands to the east. The lands are not within the NBCA's regulated area. So to go into a bit of file history and how we got to tonight's subject application, the landowners submitted an application for minor variance under file number A08-19 prior to the construction of the subject garage, which measures 884 square feet in size. Relief was approved in June of 2019 by the Committee of Adjustment for the maximum accessory building height, the height of a detached accessory building that exceeded the height of the dwelling, and the maximum size of an accessory building. Following being in receipt of a building permit, BP number 19-0284's issuance, which was issued in January of 2020, the landowner had since converted the subject space into an additional residential unit. The building envelope of the subject structure has not changed since that subject approval by the Committee of Adjustment. It is the use that has since changed from a garage with a second floor storage to now a garage, which acts as an additional residential unit on the second floor. The existing size, location, and massing were approved by township staff and since constructed. Between April 2021 to May 2021, township staff issued to the landowner an order to comply, order to uncover, order to remedy an unsafe building, and a zoning letter in order to note the additional residential unit was brought to township staff's attention, as well as to work towards compliance. The use, it should be noted that the use was changed from the storage to the additional residential unit in the summer of 2020 by the landowner. The landowner then, upon being in receipt of those notices of compliance and the zoning letter, moved forward with seeking compliance and began the preparation of an application for a zoning bylaw amendment beginning in February of 2022, where we then submitted a complete application in July of 2022. The subject use is located, as I previously mentioned, in the urban residential designation. It's a use that brings an additional residential unit to an area where growth of this nature is meant to occur in a settlement area. It also focuses on a use that's permitted within and amongst other residential uses. Therefore, the subject application conforms to the township's official plan, which also aligns with the county's and province's directions as to how we can address alternative housing needs, where we can increase housing stock, provide greater options for attainable housing, and locate development of this nature, again, where residential uses already exist. This development meets the intent of the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, the More Homes, More Choice Act, the Provincial Growth Plan, the county's official plan, the township's official plan, all of which support additional residential uses where housing already exists and is permitted. The subject lands are zoned R1 in the township's bylaw, where uses of this nature are permitted. Concerning the massing and sizing of the subject structure, as previously mentioned, relief from the Committee of Adjustment was granted in support of the subject structure. The use is one that has been supported by the township through the passing of zoning bylaw number 5000-329, which specifically regards additional residential units that offer benefits, including but not limited to increasing much needed housing options, adding attainable housing inventory, allowing for aging in place, allowing for growth to exist where it's meant to occur, growth of this nature where it's meant to occur. It respects the existing character of the neighborhood. It offers an appropriate relationship between the subject site and the surrounding area, and it makes much better use of the existing site and its infrastructure. Relief is therefore being sought through the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the maximum size of an additional residential unit within a detached accessory building, whereas the current standard requires that the ARU cannot be greater than 40% of the primary dwelling's gross floor area. When including the ground floor space of the garage, the ARU would be 75% of the primary dwelling's gross floor area. Relief is being sought for the maximum building height of an additional residential unit in a detached accessory structure, whereas the standard requires that the ARU be less than the height of the primary dwelling. This ARU measures 6.5 meters in height. Relief is being sought for the minimum interior side yard setback of the building, whereas the subject ARU measures 1.5 meters off the interior lot line. And lastly, relief is being sought for the minimum rear yard depth from the lot line to the building, where the subject ARU measures 3.05 meters from the rear yard lot line. Overall, this zoning bylaw amendment application seeks compliance to legalize a use that is permitted and encouraged by the province, the county, and the township. There is a housing crisis, and this use adds additional housing stock to an undersupplied market. The landowner wishes for the use to continue in a safe and habitable manner and has continuously demonstrated a willingness to move forward with this application alongside the assistance of township staff, making the necessary changes for the subject use to exist. Not only does the subject application meet the policy threshold for what dictates good planning, but it also aligns well with the township's progressive delivery of bylaw 5000-329 that guides and governs additional residential units, which by nature may require relief from the zoning bylaw to be able to exist through retrofits and infill developments. In conclusion, it's my professional planning opinion that the subject application is compatible with all applicable policies and standards should relief be sought and granted. It's compatible with the character of the neighborhood as it's taking place in an existing township approved structure. This application and development assists with providing the type of housing that is needed to help alleviate the current housing crisis. It's appropriate, it's necessary, and it's also development that, in my opinion, represents good planning. We would like to thank everyone for their time this evening, to staff for your review of the subject application and patience while the subject file works towards being in compliance. And we're happy to answer any questions on the subject file as able. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who've registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There is one commenter registered to make an oral submission for this application. Susan and Dennis Laycock of 3778 Horseshoe Valley Road West. Susan and Dennis, you may now address the mayor and council with your questions or concerns. Will Dennis be doing the presentation, Susan?
I will actually be doing the presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm just getting my presentation started. Sorry, I'm just not quite clear on how to manage this.
So if you go on the bottom, Susan, there should be a function that says share screen with a kind of an arrow with a square around it. If you click on that, it'll bring up your screen that you have up right now.
Okay, there you go. So share screen. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have it up, but I'm just not sure how to connect with you.
Would you like me to share my screen with the presentation?
I think we'll have to do that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me just hop on for a second here. Okay, let me just make sure everything's good here. Oh.
It says participants can now see your screen. Is that, I'm not seeing it, are you seeing it?
We're seeing a Zoom screen. There it is. Again, if you can put it full screen, please.
I will do so. There.
Yes, we see it now.
Just bear with me for one more minute. I'm going to use a script that may be slightly different from what you're seeing, because I'm unable to see the script that's attached to this. Sorry about this. I'm very new to this. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff for allowing us to present our video tonight. I'm Susan Laycock, and I'm here with Dennis Laycock. I'm not sure if you can see him as well.
We heard him earlier,
Moderator,
so go ahead. Yep.
Okay. And we are the next door neighbors at 3772 Horseshoe Valley Road West. While we are supportive of the principle of secondary suites, it is important to ensure that their impact to neighboring residences are considered. Given that the location of this accessory building 5 feet from our property has had a significant impact on our enjoyment and usage of our backyard, the proposed conversion of the structure to an ARU would significantly increase its impact on the environment, enjoyment of our personal property, as the presence of permanent residents in the structure would reduce our privacy even further. Now I'm going to, okay, all right. Zoning bylaw amendment for the ARU to exceed the height of the dwelling by as much as 7.5 feet violates our privacy with the 17-foot high dorm windows towering over our property. Although the two overlooking the property are presently covered, the infrastructure is in place to accommodate windows as was originally intended. As an accessory building, they serve as a light source. However, as an ARU, they serve a viewing area to look over the tops of all neighboring homes in the area, including Horseshoe Valley Road, for approximately 750 feet. Zoning bylaw amendment to decrease the interior setback from 10 feet to 5 feet also violates our privacy, the privacy we would expect in an R1 zone. As an accessory building, the limited traffic entering and leaving the door located 5 feet from a property line would be used occasionally by the primary dwelling residents. However, as an ARU, it would include all traffic related to a residence such as children, pets, visitors, and salespeople. The 5-foot setback limits the space for visitors to congregate on their own property as they wait to gain access by the occupant on the second floor. A typical entrance to a residential home in an R1 zone in our area is 50 feet from the property line. A 10-foot setback is also required in order to dispose of snow accumulation along the west wall where the entrance is. Sorry, I'm having to manually do this. A 10-foot setback is also required in order to dispose of snow accumulation along the west wall where the entrance is. The snow would need to be transported a minimum of 34 feet to be deposited on their own property. The picture shows it being deposited to a minimum of 6 feet on the property. These conditions would be amplified should the entrance be required to move another 10 feet to the rear. And obviously my pictures are not matching up, but there's the picture I was referencing. The owners have failed to supply any mature vegetation in key locations to screen the dorm windows or fence at the rear of the property that would eliminate any negative impact the structure would have from our backyard, as was required when the original variance was approved. The deciduous trees in the front yard area, with limbs a minimum of 30 feet plus high, offer very little obstruction at the ground level. The foliage does offer some mask from the road set, but is not present for 50% of the year from December to May. The application for a zoning bylaw amendment for the ARU requests a waiver to exceed the permitted 40% size of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling by a relief of 35% for a total of 75%. This is based on a calculation of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling, which incorrectly includes the area partly below the established grade level. Per zoning bylaw 5000, basements are the only below graded established grade level floors that can be included in the calculation of gross floor area. A basement is defined in the bylaws as an area of at least 50% above the established grade level. However, the below grade floor of the primary residence of this property is approximately 70% below grade level. And I'm showing this in the picture here. And it's not a basement and so cannot be included in the gross floor area calculations. This can be verified by the photo seen here and the video link. If the below ground floor was not included in the gross floor area, then the ARU would exceed the gross floor area of the primary dwelling by 42%. As such, as per the bylaws, it is not eligible for zoning bylaw approval. Additionally, as a result of the unapproved conversion of the accessory building to an ARU, the originally approved 1.5-story accessory building has been enlarged into a 2-story, 1,560 square foot building. When the minor variance to this property was originally approved in 2019, it included a floor area of 980 square feet, which consisted of a 1.5 floor accessory building and an existing shed. However, based on the current submission, the structure is comprised of 2 full stories with a gross floor area of 1,560 square feet. This increase in gross floor area results in the structure exceeding the gross floor area of the primary dwelling, which is not permitted per the bylaws. In conclusion, due to its excessive size and proximity to our property line, the proposed ARU would have a significant impact on our enjoyment of our property and the loss of our privacy. Based on the bylaws as written, the gross floor area of the ARU/accessory building exceeds the primary dwelling and therefore is not eligible for approval. I want to thank you at this point for your time on this matter. I apologize that my presentation was a little bit rough. We had the best laid plans, I guess. And I just want to mention that this is something that we feel very passionate about. We do support secondary suites. We do understand the importance of them, but we just feel that it really is important for all the neighbors to be able to maintain their lifestyle as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Laycock. I think you did a very good job with the presentation and the details. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Do any members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Ma Chapman.
I would just like to hear from the planning department what their thoughts are.
Yes, that's a good point. So Director Spagnuol, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess there's a couple of considerations here. The first is the zoning bylaw that's sitting before council is a zoning bylaw amendment to recognize a situation for an additional residential unit. So when in instances where there's information that's brought forward with respect to, for example, the amount of gross floor area that's considered in the application, that's where planning would look to the applicant to confirm exactly what certain heights are and what the overage would be through the application process. In instances such as this, where the information that's being provided as part of the application is contested, we would look to the applicant to provide a response to the questions that are raised through the public meeting process. With respect to additional residential units, there's no argument that those types of units are something that the township through its policies is supportive of. There's no question that the province is supportive of providing for additional residential units. However, one of the key considerations is the impact to residents and the ability of those units to be located in spots to try to mitigate any potential impacts on existing residential dwellings. So I think, this is really an application where, in order for planning staff to arrive at a recommendation and a position on this for council's consideration, we would definitely need to hear back from the applicant on the questions that have been raised through the material that's been provided by Ms. Laycock, and then go from there to try to arrive at a recommendation that tries to provide a balance between what's being supported as from providing for additional housing stock, and while trying to mitigate some of these issues that have been raised by Ms. Laycock. So those are all my comments at this point. The public meeting really is intended to have comments such as what's been provided by Ms. Laycock and other residents in the area for staff and the applicant, and also council to take in consideration when trying to arrive at a decision. Those would be my comments on the application.
Thank you. That's a normal process, and I'm glad to hear reiteration of that. And as you say, there were other residents who provided information comment, which is included in the agenda, which will form part of your collaboration and follow-up report. Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. The next item is ZB 2022-009 by K and D O'Brien for 4341 space 010-001-24805-0000. No municipal address being assigned to this one. I will now call on the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 17th day of August 2022 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 10 properties in the township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendments would apply, and to all persons in public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Russell Road. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
And did the planning department receive any correspondence in response to these notices?
There have been no items of correspondence received for this application.
Thank you. I'll now call on Director Spagnuolo to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of this proposal.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The subject property is located on the east side of Russell Road, just outside of the settlement area of Midhurst. What's being proposed is a rezoning to allow for the construction of a house and accessory buildings by rezoning a portion of the property to an agricultural zone. Planning staff has reviewed the application for conformity with the official plan, have reviewed the application for its ability to accommodate a residential use on the proposed area to be rezoned, and are recommending approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, as it would essentially result in one house located across the street from an area which is slated for considerable residential development. It's on the basis that the proposed residential use would not have an impact on surrounding agricultural uses or have an impact on the development slated to occur across the street to the east, that staff are recommending approval of the rezoning. A bylaw is included in council's agenda for this evening for approval, as staff is supporting of the application. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission for this application.
Thank you. Do any members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, thank you to all that participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting, please? Deputy Mayor Coghlan, Councillor Ma Chapman, that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act for application ZB 2022-012, -010, -002, and -009 to be adjourned at 7:45 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction following the public meeting regarding ZB 2022-012 Huron Creek Developments, Elmvale Village Phase 1? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman, that the report from the planner regarding ZB 2022-012 Huron Creek dated September 7th be received, and that bylaw 5000-360 be presented to council for consideration and approval on September 7th, subject to comments received during the public meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction following the public meeting ZB 2022-010 Midhurst Rose Alliance 32351 Gill Road? Councillor Ma Chapman and Deputy Mayor Coghlan. The council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13, as amended on zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2022-010 by Midhurst Rose Alliance, having noted correspondence and input received, directed the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Mover and seconder to receive the direction following public meeting ZB 2022-002 Johnson, Re 3772 Horseshoe Valley Road. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. The council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13 as amended on the zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2022-002 by Corrine Johnson and Norman McLean, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction following the public meeting Re 2022-009 Re Russell Road, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Hannah, that the report from the Director of Planning Services regarding ZB 2022-009 dated September 7, 2022 be received, and that bylaw 5000-361 be presented to council for consideration for approval on September 7th, 2022, subject to comments received during the public meeting. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to item 5.1, deputations and presentations. I'll now call upon Peter Fracassi to make a presentation regarding their final water bill. Sorry, Ms. Fracassi, sorry.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, and guests. I will be doing the presentation this evening. It's a verbal presentation. So I would like to begin by telling you something about us. My husband and I are the only two people living in the home at 121 Minnell Avenue at that time. And both of us are Catholic school educators. We're retired. My husband was vice chair of the school board and I'm an autism consultant. were both respected, upstanding citizens. Now, in the 5 years at 121 Manal, our average water bill was $2,400 per year. That's $12,000 in 5 years. On the final billing before moving, we get a bill for $6,200. Now, this did not follow any pattern of water usage. The bill was all placed on a final billing and subjected to the Tier 4 billing 4 times the cost. There's no rationale. The meter was working. We sent photos taken at closing, and the township says that we refused the technician's entrance into the home for the reading. That never occurred. The township says the meter was broken or burnt, but when we took pictures, there were no visible signs of any damages as per the photos we sent on the closing date of June 29th, 2022. Now, on June 27th of 2022, the township sent a technician and they came to take a reading, and we allowed them into our home, but they refused to come in. So the final reading for that home on 121 Manel was taken on June 30th when the house was in possession of the new owners. Now, the meter from time to time was unreadable from the outside. So we worked with Cheryl Thompson and gave her the readings as she requested. At no time were we told otherwise. The township sent us an email directed to our lawyer saying that if we don't pay the $6,200, that they will bill the new owners so that the new owners can sue us. Is this how the town operates now? Now, we have tried to work with the town to resolve this absurd bill, and we've done our due diligence too. Water meters from time to time are faulty. This is our contention. In speaking to plumbing experts, this is rare but does occur. This meter was erroneous and not reading from the outside, which indicates an issue. Now, we've had plumbers come in and check, and we had no leakage ever in that new home, 121 Manel. But when the price jumps, and when it skyrockets to what we're being billed, and then there is an issue, and this does not follow a pattern of water consumption. The water meter needs to be calibrated. This meter was never calibrated. This is a common issue as told to us by master plumbers that we recently hired to look into this. This home also underwent a full inspection on May 26, 2022 for the new owners. There was no indication of leaks or damage to the water meter. Now, it behooves me to understand why the water meter was read on June 30th when we no longer were in possession of this home. If there was damage, it certainly was not there on June 29th, 2022. See the photos and the inspection report on May 26, 2022. We ask that the town resolve this issue amicably, and this is why I am presenting this to you this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Fracassi. I'll start by going to Director Radigan, who has put together a compendium of the history of this. Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to members of council. I would just like to confirm that we did provide a history of events to members of council, outlining some of the issues that we have had with the property. Unfortunately, township staff were unable to receive an electronic read from the water meter from the outside since 2018. So since 2018, we have been receiving quarterly water bills over the phone from the resident. So hence why it's difficult to state what type of trend that there would be. It is our understanding that the resident does have a sprinkler system, and that it is potentially a cause for the high increased water bill. However, we did reach out to WAMCO staff, and they did state that there were no issues with the water meter itself. There was a wire that was actually either damaged or cut from inside the house. And since 2018, the resident did not actually reach out to make an appointment with WAMCO to have the issue corrected. And as a result, COVID obviously took over at the end of 2019 and 2020, and portion of 2021, where township staff or WAMCO did not go out to residents or want to enter their homes. So this was something that needed to be corrected by entering the home. My understanding is from WAMCO, we did reach out to the homeowner on several occasions, and unfortunately, appointments were not made to correct that. And so hence, no electronic read was ever received since 2018 to 2022. So the read is not over a short period of time. It is an accumulation potentially over the years. And so it's difficult to say that the meter was working. There were no concerns with the meter. It was just the electronic read was not being received at the time. And at this point, since the owner has sold the home and moved on, based on the Municipal Act Section 398, public utility fees as well as charges that are imposed by a municipality, including the supply of water. It holds a priority lien, which can be added to property taxes and collected in that manner. So at this point, it is out of the township's hands. So right now, the option is either the residents work together to pay the outstanding fee, or because it is on taxes, there's actually no. The only other option would be to provide a grant from the township, which I do believe would be precedent setting on our side. Unfortunately, the township does believe that the water meter was working correctly and the final read that was received was accurate. WAMCO staff have to be the individuals that go into a home. Township employees do not enter homes, and I believe that is the reason why on the 29th, the township employee would not enter the home.
It was the 27th.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, Ms. Fracchesi. On all real estate purchases, you have a statement of adjustments where the lawyers involved in the transaction confirm any amounts owing for utilities, water, whatever, that form the basis for that statement of adjustment. How is it that this did not arise on the closing statement of adjustment in the purchase and sale of the home?
We are constantly paying our water bills, and we only use the sprinkler system in the front of the home, not the entire property. We didn't water any of the back. There's no need.
Okay, that was my question.
We only had flower beds at the front, and even then we conserved water very intensely. There was only 2 of us in the home.
My question was there no adjustment for the outstanding water bill on the statement of adjustments?
We didn't have, we found out about the bill after we moved.
Okay. All right, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to the Director of Finance. You mentioned that. Can you be a little bit more definitive as the length of time? Are we talking 3 years that there's been no payment made on the water?
No, we have been paying our water bills.
Excuse me, Ms. Fracchesi. I'll direct the conversation, the question. Thank you. Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Ritchie. August 2018 is the start date of the township being unable to receive an electronic read. So it's not to say that the resident was not paying. We were receiving verbal information from the resident stating what the read was. However, the township is unable to confirm the accuracy of that read since it was verbally communicated over a period of 3 years. Sorry, even 4 years. So at that point, it's difficult to state the trend of usage over that period of time as well.
Follow on, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, Mayor Allen, through to the Miss Tracy, is it?
For Casey.
For Casey.
Yes.
So, and you mentioned that on average, you paid about $2,400 a year in a water bill?
Yes.
Thank you.
Who had their card up next? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to comment that Director Radigan provided, I think, a very compelling list of events that happened. And I think it's evident that we would have a very strong case if this goes to any adjudication. My question through to Director Radigan is, when the connection from the meter inside got connected to the meter outside, is that when you established how much actually had been used?
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hannah, that is correct. And so just to also go back on your question, Mayor Allen, the tax certificate was requested on June 8th, which was prior to the township WAMCO staff being able to actually go into the resident's house to actually take the meter reading. I do believe a picture was also provided by WAMCO staff as well.
So when the request was made for the tax certificate, was our response saying that we're not in a position to provide it until WAMCO goes out and takes an accurate read?
Through you, Mayor Allen, the account balance at the time was zero. Staff did not anticipate to have such a large error in the amount of consumption. So at that point in time, I do believe the tax certificate stated that there were no amounts outstanding.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess my first question would be, so in August of 2018, understanding that it's a quarterly billing. So why was there, is it because the wires were no longer serviceable from the inside? So nothing due to COVID. So this was pre-COVID that this incident had happened. Through you, Mayor Allen.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. You are correct. This incident started in August of 2018 prior to COVID, which actually started in December of 2019. So starting in 2020 and a portion of 2021, we did request that WAMCO staff or any other staff, including bylaw staff, did not go into a home or go knock on doors into homes. However, when things had cleared up, the resident was contacted and did receive letters indicating that the wire on the inside needed to be replaced and reconnected to the outside meter in order for it to be read electronically once again.
Councillor Moore?
No, it's okay. Thank you very much. She answered my question. Thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, I have a few questions for Director Radigan. My understanding is it's 2018, and I take it that the meter itself reads the water consumption, but there's a digital readout attached to the house that needs to be connected for that readout to be able to be transmitted. I'd like to know what the water rates have increased since 2018 each year. Would that be a fair thing to say? I don't know by what percentage, but they have gone up, or have they remained static?
Director Radigan?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. I know I can start, but I may need CEO Schmidt to confirm. But I do believe the water rates for the 2021 and 2022 budget were 2%. I would need CAO Schmidt to potentially confirm, or I can also reach back out to you, Councillor Cabral, and confirm.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. And just to confirm Director Radigan's comments, I believe the maximum increase would have been 2% possibly per year. However, I do recall, however, I would have to confirm that I believe from 2018 to 2020, water rates were capped at the same rate. So there was no increase in water rates, I believe, for 2018 and 2019 and possibly 2020. But again, we can confirm that. I've been listening to the conversation here tonight, and I've had previous experience with this file, and I would just state that based on my past experience with Mr. and Mrs. Fracchesi, they are a high water user. WAMCO has visited the site in 2018 and has been able to download data off of the water meter. There's times where water usage was exceeding 8 cubic meters of water a day. And so I would just state to members of council that information, again, they are a high water user. So I'll leave it at that.
We don't have a swimming pool.
Excuse me, Ms. Fracchesi, please do not interject. I am chairing the meeting and I govern the conversation through requests, please.
Thank you.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you.
Yes.
I also am of the understanding that, you know, we're talking about a water usage charge, but that also comprises the wastewater portion is included in that charge. It's not like you pay for water and then you pay for wastewater going out separately. So that's a comment I just want to know. But I did want to know, when we're talking about getting the readings from Mrs. Fracchesi and her husband, were photos requested? It was my understanding photos were requested of the readings, but never provided.
No, they never requested photos. Never requested a photo.
Go ahead, Ms. Fracchesi. Did you not hear what I told you before?
And thank you. And I wanted to also know, it's my understanding that there were some penalties that were imposed, and there were penalties that were removed as a gesture of goodwill at the time too.
Director Radigan, can you confirm what Councillor Cabral is stating?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral. Yes, there were some fees that were removed, but they were removed as a result of, it was a Township of Springwater issue and not necessarily a resident issue. So they were removed because it was in error on our part. And it is also my understanding that our coordinator did request pictures of the reads. However, we did not receive any, just so ideally we'd like to be able to confirm and not just take a verbal reading over the phone, just to ensure that we do have an accurate reading and incidences such as this don't occur.
Thank you. Mayor Allen, one final comment, I guess. Just from listening and reading the material that we were provided, the meter was in working order. Mrs. Fracchesi herself has indicated that. So whatever water passed through the meter was metered, for lack of a better term. The information that may have been provided sporadically, however, the only thing I can think of is somehow or other it may have been inaccurate. But at the end of the day, it's $6,000, Mayor Allen, that other residents would have to pay, literally have to pay, in order for Mrs. Fracchesi not to have to pay it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. My question then would be has there been a meter read to the address since the new owners have taken occupancy?
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. The new resident did allow us into their home, and it has been corrected, and so we can electronically take take a meter read. I don't have a recent read of the system at the moment, but it is my understanding that the new resident did state that the sprinkler system was on excessively when they did originally move in.
Thank you.
Okay, any other council comments? Okay, I'll give Ms. Fracchesi one final chance to make any further comment that hasn't been reviewed by yourself thus far.
Well, I did the presentation so that we could resolve this amicably. We are not high water consumers. We're only 2 seniors in one house, and we did not consume a lot of water. I did my best in every way, and so did my husband, to conserve water. We didn't use the sprinkler system in the back of the house. And that's the biggest part of the property. And we only used it on weeks where we did not get any rain, but we did not use the sprinkler system excessively. We didn't use it every day. We used it at best twice a week, just to give the grass some water. We didn't do anything else. So I don't know how it can be said that we're high consumers. We were the opposite. We did not, and $6,000 of water. How many swimming pools would that amount to? That would be crazy. And I don't think any resident should be paying a $6,000 water bill, because it's impossible to use up all that water.
Well,
It's impossible.
I don't think it's impossible.
No, we don't have swimming pools.
Okay.
We didn't have gardens.
I think we've covered
only
it.
had a couple of flower beds, and we didn't water every night or every morning like other people did. We're
Okay,
teachers
thank
on
you.
a budget, on a pension.
Thank you for coming to present to us this evening. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation from Ms. Fracchesi, please? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cabral, that the delegation from Ms. Fracchesi regarding the final water bill be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for presenting to us, Ms. Fracchesi. Okay, you can leave the meeting now. Thank you. Next, we move on to 5.2, which is the request of donation of space for VON Smart Seniors Maintaining Active Roles Together program. I'll now call upon Nicole Logren to make a presentation regarding this request. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. So my name is Nicole Logren. I am the supervisor for the Georgian-based SMART program, which stands for Seniors Maintaining Active Roles Together. I am here on behalf of the Simcoe Muskoka SMART team with hopes of partnering with you to offer our free beneficial program to the seniors within the township of Springwater. VON is a nonprofit organization that provides home and community care. Our goal is to ensure superior healthcare is available and affordable and accessible to everyone, no matter their income or where they live. Today at VON Canada, we deliver more than 75 different community programs and services designed to help people of all ages to get healthy and stay healthy. Our team of more than 5,000 team members and a dedicated team of more than 9,000 community volunteers serve Canadians in more than 1,200 communities across our country. Specifically today, I'm here representing the VON SMART program for the Simcoe Muskoka team. The SMART program is a free group exercise program for seniors designed to improve strength, balance, and mobility, and ultimately prevent falls among the seniors within our communities. Our fitness classes accommodate all levels of mobility and are facilitated by fitness instructors who receive specialized training and ongoing education. We are hoping to partner with the Township of Springwater to be able to provide this program to the residents of Springwater. Prior to the pandemic, our program ran out of the Eaton Mills and Midhurst community centers for 5 years. We would like to continue that partnership as well as expand on it to include other municipal buildings within Springwater, specifically the community hall in Elmville. Prior to the pandemic, we ran our program out of, or in Elmville, out of a local church. The basement of the church is quite small and not very accessible for this population of older adults. The community hall is a much larger and more accessible space, and we would be able to reach many more community members by utilizing this space. We had about 40 people attending the program at the church prior to the pandemic. These seniors have gone without this program for 2 years now, and we really want to be able to provide it to everyone in the community and not to have to limit the capacity. Holding the program at the community hall would allow us to do this. We are currently partnered with many other cities and townships as they have recognized the benefits of the program for their residents. Some include the city of Barrie, Clearview Township, the town of Wasaga Beach, the town of Penetanguishene, and Tay Township, just to name a few within the area. Specifically, I am hoping the Township of Springwater can donate space twice a week for a 1-hour exercise class at the Elmville Community Hall, as well as other buildings within the township. We will work closely with the recreation staff when scheduling and work within the open availability of the centers. Okay, and thank you for your time. That is it.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll start by going to Manager Dean just to provide her thoughts and comments, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you, Nicole, for your presentation. So the VON program was ran in the past at the Midhurst Community Center, and I guess even before that at the Anton Mills Community Hall when it was probably overseen by the Community Recreation Association. So these classes in the past were likely brought through to the Recreation Advisory Committee and also through the community hall boards at that time, and utilized the space of those halls at that time. In terms of the programs and the benefits to the community, I would agree and echo a lot of the comments that Nicole says. They do have some specialized fitness instructors that we wouldn't necessarily have in our complement of recreational offerings within the township. And I do believe, although we do offer programs for ourselves, and our programs are a cost recovery model program, I do believe that these programs wouldn't necessarily compete with our recreational offerings. And they definitely do offer health benefits to residents. So whether it be in the various areas of the township. In regards to space in the community halls, this space, as Nicole said, we would look to work with them and not have it conflict with any commitments that were in the community halls at that time. There would be some cost to the townships, and that would be for the costs of essentially having our staff go through the halls and check the halls and ensure the halls were clean and tidy before and after the programming.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor to discuss, please? Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Maude Chapman. Councillor Ritchie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Nicole, if we were to grant the hall, are you prepared to clean up when you're done at your expense?
Well, first of all, let's go to Manager Dean about the logistics of doing that. If they were responsible for the cleaning, how would that work, Manager Dean?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through yourself to Councillor Ritchie and the rest of council. So currently, when the halls are rented or utilized, we do ask that the renters tidy up as opposed to clean up after themselves. So if any tables and chairs are used, they are asked to wipe those down and put those away. We have basic cleaning equipment such as that out. So broom, a mop in case the floor gets wet when people are coming in. And for these classes, I don't believe anything but potentially chairs would be used, but we do ask they're just stacked back in the locations where they are. So our staff would still come in through their checks, and at certain times of the year would mop the floor after and would do bathroom checks prior to or before other rentals.
Nicole, would that be workable for you?
Yes, that's typically how it works with the other townships that we go into.
Okay, follow on, Councillor Ritchie.
I just want to say, Mayor Allen, that there's a large between the apartment buildings and the condos and, well, anyways, there's a large retirement age in town. I see them out walking up and down the streets here all the time. And I know the seniors have a euchre tournament or a game there once a week. Manager Dean could speak about that as to when and how long, but you know what, for what it's worth, if it's sitting there vacant, I think this would be a worthwhile project to the seniors of Elmvale to let them get out and exercise and camaraderie and speak to one another. I'd have to support this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and I also do support this too. And thank you, Nicole, for the presentation. My question is, what was the participation last time we held it?
Nicole?
So when we were running it at the church in Elmvale, there was approximately 15 to 25 people coming out to every class. So it wouldn't always be the same people every time. We ran it, I think, 3 times a week prior to the pandemic. But there was about 15 to 25 coming. But I think if we were at the community hall, we would get quite a few more than that coming out to each class because we would be able to reach.
Follow on, Councillor Ma.
Mayor Allen, and to Manager Dean, just what estimate would you think the cost would be if staff would come in and clean the bathrooms? I can't imagine they would be that dirty or filthy after. I'm just wondering.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. So depending on what the schedule was of the classes, what we would look to do is schedule it on rotations of staff through those different areas. And some of it would depend on when other groups were in and out. But to do a quick go through of the washrooms and the floors in that building would probably be give or take 20 to 30 minutes of staff time. If it was a really wet, messy day, maybe a little bit more here and there.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As the VON is a nonprofit organization, I'm wondering, Nicole, if you could speak to what patrons would be charged to attend the program. And you said 3 times a week, is that right? Is that what you're planning moving forward?
Nicole?
No, I was requesting just twice a week for now. And the program is completely free for the participants. It's fully funded by Ontario Health.
Councillor Cabral?
Amazing.
Oh, okay. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Nicole. Nicole, I want to thank you for your presentation. I read over the delegation initially, and I was a little bit concerned because nonprofit means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. However, when I read it, I thought it was the Vaughan SMART program, not the VON SMART program. As soon as you mentioned it was the VON, the Victorian Services, I tweaked in, and when you used the other wonderful word that I like to hear for seniors, which was free, I thought that was an important thing too. So I want to thank you for that, because my concern would be sometimes if things are provided gratis, it does create a bit of a disparity amongst other residents. But in this particular case, I see no downside whatsoever. I think the number of seniors that you had at the church already speaks to the success of the program. So if you had another location to do it in, and it certainly bodes well for the township too, because it's basically going to be a recreational program that our staff don't have to actually put on themselves. They can work in conjunction with the VON to do it. So I'm very supportive of it now that I know all the ins and outs of it. Thank you very much.
Councillor Ritchie, did you have a follow-up?
Mayor Allen, I just wanted to mention that at the community hall, it's so accessible to get in there. So for the seniors, I can see more people coming and to use it. And if something happened down the road where we had to move things around, like there's still that partnership agreement we have with the high school that I'm hoping that we get the COVID behind us and we can open that up. There's always that to think of as well too. But the community hall, it's centralized a lot of the areas where these seniors are living, and there's parking. It just bodes well, and I'm very supportive of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Ainsworth, before I go to a final comment of Councillor Ma, can you tweak the motion as it is now, and we'll come back shortly and get a mover and seconder. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Alan, sorry, just a thought. If this does go and the success is highly recommended, do you think, Nicole, you would expand to other hamlets like Midhurst, maybe use the church or Minising Hall or Aunt Mills, maybe once a week, if you had the staff for that?
Nicole?
Yes. So the supervisor in the Barrie region would like to resume the programs that they had running in Aunt Mills and Midhurst, but currently they do not have the capacity to start that program up now. So that's why within this presentation, I included mentioning other township buildings as well, but just currently they just don't have the capacity to start those programs at this time. But in the future, yes.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Is there a way that this evening the motion before council could include the option to expand a partnership, or would that, if we only approve Elmville tonight, would we require them to come forward to councils, or could this simply, as the capacity of on VON does increase, they could increase through the municipality?
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What I would recommend if council would like to move forward with this would be an amendment to receiving the delegation to add that council hereby approves the request for rental of township facilities at no cost for the VON SMART program, and that would provide Manager Dean with some leniency on which facilities they might be looking at renting.
Yeah, I just wonder whether that's a little open-ended, the way you just stated. Councillor Cabral?
Not to detract from that, Mayor Allen, please hold that thought. I just wanted to ask Manager Dean if this is potentially a program that might be included in the fall recreational guide, if there's
Manager
time
Dean?
for that.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Yes, so I'll definitely work with Nicole, and depending on the dates that they're ready to start, we'll make sure that the information gets out there, whether it be we have to do kind of something additional through our other means. We do put stuff in the Springwater News bi-weekly and can go out through social media as well. So we can ensure that the information is readily available to residents when the dates the classes are ready to start.
Clerk Ainsworth, just before I go to Councillor Ritchie, I think if we approve the locations they request now, and then say that future council would consider potentially expanding into other locations, something like that, it gives them indication that we're interested in hearing back from them about further programs, but doesn't say that they can have unlimited future programs. Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, I don't know if we're on the same page here, but it'd be nice to just move this one here forward, let them get started. And if there's more interest in this, then I would look forward to the VON coming back to future councils and seeking request for other, because it's nice to know what's going on.
Yes.
How it's doing, how many people are attending, and if there's interest in Midhurst, Minising, or Grenville, or whatever, come on back and let's talk about it without just giving them a blank check. We don't know about what's going on, so at least this way they've come before us. They're asking. We have input into it. So I'd kind of like to just move this thing forward and grant it to them. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I was just referring to. So I'm glad we're on the same page. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I've simply removed the any township facility and specified the Elmvale Community Center and the Midhurst Community Hall.
And then made reference to our willingness to consider future possibilities if they bring them back to council or something like that.
I can add that in, yes.
Councillor Cabral?
Mayor Allen, I'm just wondering if it might be appropriate that once this gets going, might be just as easy to have staff work with Nicole and the VON and simply do a staff report in the future seeking to open up other venues, and then council would be able to look at them that way. Might be the easiest solution to move forward tonight.
Yep, that's fine too. Councillor Maude Chapman?
Yes, now, just a quick question to Nicole. What's the senior age start at?
Nicole?
55 plus.
That scoops most of us. Okay, final motion. Please read it, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. And if you would like any changes, please let me know. So it would be an amendment to the main motion, that the motion now before council be amended as follows. To add that council hereby approves the request for rental of the Elmvale Community Center and the Midhurst Community Hall at no cost for the VON SMART program, with willingness to expand to other facilities in the future.
We don't make any reference to the cleanup that was referred to by Manager Dean. Is that the people want to have that incorporated? Manager Dean?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So within our rental contracts, we do kind of specify what is expected of renters in terms of kind of the tidying of the facility upon their departure. So it is in kind of the facility agreement document.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we go ahead to all those in favor with the amendment, and then we'll get the whole motion going? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Marilyn. We will also need a mover and seconder for the amendment, please.
Okay, Councillor Moore and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, all those in favor? That is carried. And the main motion, can you read it, Clerk Ainsworth?
That the delegation from Nicole Loughran, VON SMART program, regarding a request for the donation of space be received, and that council hereby approves the request for rental of the Elmvale Community Center and the Midhurst Community Hall at no cost for the VON SMART program, with willingness to expand to other facilities in the future.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Nicole, and good luck. We look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on to 5.3, tree request from Midhurst Community Recreation Association. I'll now call upon Hale Mahone of the Midhurst CRA to make a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and good evening to you and to members of council and staff and the public. So just checking, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So I just wanted to give a brief introduction to the issue. So in the summer of 2019, the Midhurst Community Recreation Association purchased a 30-foot tall Norway spruce tree and had it planted at the Midhurst Pavilion on Spence Avenue. This tree it quickly became part of our community event infrastructure, and we began hosting our tree lighting there in 2019. And that had continued into 2021 as well. In summer of 2021, unfortunately, there was the LDD moth infestation that I'm sure everyone is aware of, as well as a separate disease that had affected the tree. And those two things combined, unfortunately, killed the tree. And so in June of 2022, the MCRA passed the motion that I'll read now. So the MCRA requests that the Township of Springwater initiate and pay for the removal, disposal, replacement, and maintenance of the 30-foot Norway spruce tree located at the front of the Midhurst Pavilion property, as well as any Christmas lights that were damaged as a result of LDD moth control measures. And so part of this request has already taken place. The removal of the tree has happened within the past couple of weeks. So I want to thank staff already for doing that, especially in advance of the Midhurst Autumn Fest Fall Fair happening at the end of this month. So it's very good to get that out of the way. But we would still be looking to move forward with the latter part of the motion that we passed, which would request that the township pay for the new tree and the installation of the new tree. And so we did receive a quote through one of our members from the original supplier of the tree, who's willing to provide another tree for the same cost of $3,500, which includes delivery and installation of the tree. And we've also secured a deal with an irrigation company within the township of Springwater to provide free irrigation services for 2 years in exchange for a sign advertising their business within the Midhurst Pavilion, which is a program that the Recreation Association currently runs. So my delegation request would just, in effect, respectfully request that the township pay for the new tree, and that this preferably occur before Midhurst Autumn Fest happens on September 24th. So I'm happy to answer any questions or comments.
Okay, before we go to question comment, I'll ask Manager Dean to again add any further information that might be available with respect to this.
Hi, good evening. Hale did state most of kind of the facts in regards to the tree. So the township did have the tree inspected by Downey Trees when they were doing some other arborist work within the township. So Downey Trees did confirm that the tree was infected by, and bear with me because I am likely going to say the name of the disease wrong, but Ryospira needle cast disease, and then further was infected by the spongy moth disease in 2021. So the tree was stressed, and then it was affected by spongy moths, which further stressed it. There was some preliminary budding of the tree last summer, so it was left in place and was reviewed again by an arborist at the beginning of the year to see if it was beneficial to treat it. At that point, unfortunately, it was determined the tree was not thriving and wouldn't benefit from further measures to help it to resurface, I guess. So in discussions with the MCRA and knowing that the tree was no longer a living tree, it was removed recently by staff to ensure that area was cleaned up prior to Autumn Fest.
Okay, Councillor Hannah.
I'm here. Thank you, Mayor. Just my observations are that, and thank you, Hale, for taking the time to make the presentation. The unfortunate part of the whole thing, the tree's dead. The MCRA did fundraise for that tree. They donated that tree. They paid $3,500 for that tree. Plus, I think it was another $1,200 for lights that they put on that tree. I would suggest that asking the township to replace that tree is consistent with the new policy that we've just approved for memorial trees. And I think it's 5.3 on that policy. It says that if a tree dies, the township will replace it. So I would say that's consistent what Hale's asking for and what the residents are asking for. And I would suggest we can pay for that tree out of the stabilization fund. And that's going to be the amendment I'm going to ask to make to the main motion, is that staff be directed by council to take advantage of the opportunity we have to replace that tree for a cost that was 3 years ago that we paid for it, and have it done as soon as possible. Apparently we can get it done before Autumn Fest if we get in touch with the person selling the tree that will install it and have it done. So I think that's appropriate thing for us to do, is to ask staff to move forward with this at the cost of the funds from the stabilization fund.
Thank you. Couple of questions. The type of tree, Manager Dean, it's a type of tree being contemplated, the same type of tree that was in before, same make, model? Anybody?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Hale might have to speak to the type of tree that they had spoken to the supplier for. We were suggested by the arborist that there might be other species of a spruce tree that might thrive better in those conditions. But I would want to talk to a tree professional to confirm that.
And my other question was, you said about irrigation. We have access to water there with the flooding of the rinks, and staff would be able to make sure it's watered. What irrigation system is necessary over and above that, Hale?
Thank you. We had been in contact with Cardinal Irrigation in Midhurst, and they had offered to provide irrigation services. I don't know off the top of my head how that would differ from any irrigation that staff could provide. Perhaps Councillor Hanna can speak to that.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not 100% accurate, but the information I received was that when the irrigation system was put in, when we first put the tree in the ground, that there's a line running under the ground still exists that goes to the site where the tree would be planted. So that would relieve some of the thing. And I believe a discussion we had at MCRA was one of the people, I believe, that floods the rink said that that underground line is still hooked up before the spigot that is used to turn the water off and on. So if that is correct, there is no need now to have that spigot turned on. The water is already can be accessed through the line that exists. As I say, if that is correct, I'm not 100% sure. And to answer your further question, I was told that the original tree was a Norwalk and not a spruce. So that may make the difference if we replace it with a different tree.
Other questions, Council? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Alan, and thank you, Hale, for the presentation. My question is, I'm just going with all the CRAs, would this set a precedence with all that, or would it be on an individual basis? What if Grenfell wanted a tree or Aunt Mills? And also, I'm not sure if the township's responsible for the lights of those trees. I can understand that maybe the tree, but if I get clarification from Manager Dean about us replacing the lights.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through yourself to Councillor Ma Chapman. So typically, if a tree was on township property, whether it be a donated tree or an existing tree on township property, it would be maintained under our park staff. Now, we don't have an arborist department in the township, and typically most of the trees within our township, they basically are trees out in the park, and they thrive with the elements. So we don't water trees throughout the township in other locations, and we don't have an invasive species program currently in place for different invasive species to trees. So again, trees would be monitored, hazardous trees would be maintained, trimmed, and removed as required. And in regards to the trees, with the other CRAs, and I believe Midhurst as well, so the CRAs do put the lights up and take the lights down each year and do the lighting for them. They also store the lights for the trees. I am not aware of the township purchasing lights for other CRAs, but again, I may stand to be corrected. And I know when the tree was removed in Midhurst recently, the lights were taken off the tree, and they are in storage. I can't speak to the full workings of them yet, as staff haven't had time to kind of plug them in and test them, but they were removed from the tree prior to it being removed from the ground.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, for yourself to Manager Dean. I'm to assume that there was no warranty, essentially. I know that we've purchased trees for our farm here, and there was no warranty that came with them. So there was nothing of that nature with the purchase of that tree.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So I did reach out to the original supplier of the tree. I have not yet heard back, although I believe if the dates I have are correct, the tree would have been planted in 2019. Standardly, the warranty is a year to 2 years, depending on tree and depending on who supplies the trees. Therefore, likely it would have been outside of the period.
But just for clarification, they proposed the same company is being approached for this offer, this deal. Is that correct, Hale?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Ma Chapman.
And just another question, maybe through to Manager Dean. I know Hale gave a quote on that one company. Would the township seek other quotes on other trees?
Manager Dean.
So typically for an item of this dollar value, we would seek 3 quotes to determine. So we seek 3 quotes of equal trees. So that may include certain landscapers suggesting another tree. So we would like to seek 3 of quotes for the same style of tree or the same style of product.
Okay, let's get the main motion on, and we can follow on, Deputy Mayor.
That's fine, Mayor, and I'm happy to wait until your direction.
Okay, let's get the motion on the table, and we'll talk about amendments. So, Councillor Ann, I presume you're moving it? Yes.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I can't hear you.
Let's get the motion on the table and we'll talk about amendments. So you're moving it. Who's seconding this, please? Councillor Cabral. Okay. So the different things we've talked about amending it. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm asking to have council provide direction to staff to replace the tree that has died at the Midhurst Pavilion, and it would be nice if we could get it done before Autumn Fest and be able to get the Christmas trees lights on it, of course, before that time of the year as well.
And are you setting a maximum of the $3,500 that was spoken of?
I would suggest that I will leave that up to staff, or if you want to have a maximum, that's fine. But I believe we can get the funds out of the stabilization fund. If we can get a better tree for a few dollars more, I wouldn't want to handcuff staff's negotiations.
I thought as council, we were always, we were never doing motions without putting dollar value on it, Councillor Hannah.
Okay, $3,500, Mayor Allen, it would be my motion, and it would come from the stabilization fund. And if it's not sufficient funds going forward to help staff, possibly the MCRA could assist.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Just a question is, if we have to get 3 quotes for that dollar amount, is 2 weeks enough time for the tree to be in?
I think we can't have a hard deadline. It would be best efforts to do it properly, and the tree's down and the area's cleaned up is my understanding, so that's a good start. And we want to make sure there's a proper warranty on this potential purchase. So CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think on behalf of staff, we'll do our best to try to meet that deadline. But I think what we can confirm or what we can commit to is probably to have it in place definitely before the tree lighting in advance of the Autumn Fest. That might be difficult, but we'll do our best to try to accommodate.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth, do you have the wording you can tell us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. Let me just share my screen. This motion is based on some wording that I had discussed with Councillor Hannah prior to the meeting, just to prepare for the amendment. It would read to add, and whereas Midhurst Community Recreation Association paid $3,500 for a 30-foot tall Norwalk spruce tree to be installed at Doran Park, and whereas the tree has died and needs to be replaced, Be it therefore resolved that the township cover the cost of the replacement tree at a cost of $3,500, and that it be delivered and installed prior to Autumn Fest if possible, and that the required funds be taken from the tax rate stabilization reserve.
Thank you. Just clarification, Hale, back to this irrigation. Did you say that this company Cardinal would do whatever the best solution is to offer permanent ongoing irrigation to the tree for 2-year signage in the pavilion and no further charges? Is that my understanding correct?
So in exchange for the 2 years of signage in the pavilion, they would provide 2 years of irrigation, which was the time that was recommended by the original tree supplier. They requested that it be watered consistently for 2 years after planting. And so that was where we got the 2-year figure from.
Well, when they water it, does that gets back to what Councillor Hannah was saying, using the piping and setting up some sort of a watering system that we would maintain after, or how would they go about irrigating for 2 years?
I apologize, I don't have all the details of their plan. When I met with them, just with brief discussions about that topic, they had discussed that there was already water infrastructure in the ground that they would simply tap into and just provide the irrigation on the tree end of it for 2 years. But I can certainly look into that and get some more information for you.
Manager Dean, what are your thoughts on that? I don't want to have ongoing charges to irrigate this thing when we can, through staff, do the irrigation, I would presume. Do you have a comment on that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So staff, I would suggest, would not standardly have time to irrigate a tree multiple times a week by hand. I do believe there is infrastructure in the ground, and essentially the irrigation head or the spigot, it sounds like may just need to be put back in place. Now, I'm not sure if Cardinal is thinking they would also install the timer, kind of the on-off, that would go along with that irrigation system, and then it would be set to come on a timer, which would be what would be similar to what happens on our sports fields. So within the township, currently the only locations we do irrigate are the sports fields at Tree Nursery Sports Park. If they didn't have a timer, then likely there would be some kind of on-off that would be required by staff to kind of time and turn on and off the watering of the tree.
So from your perspective, do you feel anything needs to be put in this motion to cover that aspect of it, or leave that up to the MCRA to further discuss and make their agreement with Cardinal for 2 years, and then we'll see what happens after that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would suggest, just with it being a township facility and property, we would want to have the contact with the watering company. We would want to know what the agreement was, even if it was an in-kind agreement with the MCRA, as likely if there was any issues or maintenance issues with it, it would likely be staff reaching out to the irrigation company and just to determine what the full what the system was, which again, likely just from experience is probably similar to what is on some of our sports fields.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth, can we add a sentence to that effect, that township staff needs to make arrangements with the irrigation company? We don't need to state the name. Does that work for you, Hale?
That works for me. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I guess just for myself, further clarification that the Norwalk tree at a 30-foot height for $3,500, is that the expectation to be replaced at similar? I'm just curious if staff learns that through tendering there's a different tree that's more likely to survive in that area. Does it have to be that type of tree at that height, or is it to the discretion of staff understanding the desire of the MRA?
I think it'd be the latter. We capped the dollar amount. Councillor Hannah agreed to that. We've made comment about the right type of tree, so there'd have to be discussion between manager Dean and the tree company to make sure we have the right make and model in there. And I don't think we can fix the height at this point in time, but there's $3,500, up to $3,500 to play with. So Manager Dean, any other thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. No, I at this time, I wouldn't have a good price estimate to give you from seeking out from other companies. As I say, we would reach out and talk to some tree professionals, as well as our park supervisor knows what the soil is like in that area, and just determine what type of spruce would be the best to thrive in those soil conditions, as we do realize that the Community Recreation Association would like the kind of the Christmas tree look there.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to answer your question, my understanding is that the arrangements that have been made for the replacement was for a 30-foot tree. However, I have confidence that staff will do whatever they can to make it work, whether it's 35 or 25. I think we'll get whatever we can. And the other thing about the irrigation, my understanding it only is required to save the tree or to make the tree grow healthy, a 2-year watering cycle. And of course, it's only for the summer months. So I believe that we're lucky to be able to get that done, and it should be of no need for staff to look after it if it is an automatic system, which I was led to believe it was as well.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth, can you put the wording up, please? Okay. Intensive time making necessary agreement with the donating irrigation company. Okay. Any comments on that? All right.
Excuse me, Mayor, should we consider taking the name Norwalk out in case, as the manager has suggested, there might be a better tree?
Yes, good, yeah. The 30, the appropriate or the suitable. And I'd like to take 30 foot out because I don't want to commit to that for a suitable replacement tree. Take the 30 foot out and take the spruce out. For a suitable replacement tree. Clerk Ainsworth.
Mayor Allen, thank you. This one is just the preamble, just stating what took place in the past with the MCRA purchasing that tree. But I can remove all of the descriptive, just saying paid $35 for I can leave just spruce tree. The main piece of the motion just states a replacement tree. It doesn't have any specifics, so it provides leniency there.
And you say at a cost of $3,500. Do you want to put something of up to $3,500 to contemplate that if it's a greater cost, then the MCRA might top that up? Okay. Any other comments?
The wording that's on there is appropriate. I believe that as long as we say spruce tree, that's the type of tree that we need if we want to put Christmas lights on it, and we're spending up to $3,500. And as I said, I believe staff are competent enough to get the best they can for that amount of money.
Good. Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Hale, for the presentation. I've been requested to take a 10-minute bio break. I think this is a record. We're 2.5 hours and we haven't hit question period. Go relieve yourself. 10 minutes. Okay, we need one more counselor to show up. There we go. Oh, now Perry leaves. Okay.
My apologies, Mayor Allen. My buttons are not working again.
Mayor Allen, before we go back into session, can I make a comment, please?
Go ahead.
During our break, I got a call that the tree that is being replaced at the value we got it for $3,500, but it's over a $5,000 tree that they're going to replace it with.
That's good. Is it, what type of tree is it, Councillor Hannah?
I'm sorry?
What type is it? Is it the same
I'm
type?
sorry, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, we'll let Manager Dean sort out those details. Thank you. Okay, we're on question period on the agenda. Item 6 on the agenda. Members of the public can ask questions of council or make comments regarding items on the agenda. The process is outlined on tonight's agenda, basically submitting the questions in writing or submitting a desire to present the questions in person to the clerk's department by noon of the day of the meeting. And so, Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions for this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There has been a submission for an oral question period submission from Emilio Pompilio, and he is on the call. I will be promoting him to a panelist now, so he should show up in the meeting just in a moment. So, sir, you can unmute yourself and put your camera on and go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Allen, council members and staff. My name is Emilio Pompilio, and my wife and I are the homeowners of 2 Belmont Crescent in Midhurst. I wish to comment on item 9.4 of today's general council meeting agenda regarding the purchase of lands for the sidewalk at 2 Belmont Crescent. We became aware that the section of sidewalk in question was on our lands in May 2021 when we had our property boundary staked out by a surveyor. We advised the township of Springwater immediately. There was no prior agreement in place, either written or verbal, prior to, during, or after the sidewalk was constructed in 2008 to allow the construction of the sidewalk on our lands. We were always of the understanding that it was located on municipal property. During our discussions with Mr. Ramdeo of the Township of Springwater, the following options were discussed to address the matter: the removal and relocation of the sidewalk to the municipal lands adjacent to the existing roadway, the creation of a permanent easement across our private property lands in favor of the Township of Springwater, and the sale of the affected lands to the Township of Springwater. We are not in favor of and will not support a permanent easement for the following reasons: that we could be a named defendant if there were a trip, fall, or personal injury claim, added cost to us for home insurance coverage, and complications and reluctance from potential purchasers when we sell our property. Relocating the sidewalk to the adjacent road allowance will put pedestrians very close to Belmont Crescent and the risks associated with the rate of speed of vehicles, curve of the road, traffic from large trucks and buses that frequently use Belmont Crescent. During the school year, many children use that sidewalk twice a day. Children can at times be careless and forget about their proximity to road hazards. We in the community have become very fond of the current as-built location of the sidewalk. While we are not pleased to give up a portion of our lands, we support the recommendations of the staff report dated August 3rd, 2022. From our perspective, time is of the essence, and we request that this matter be addressed and finalized as promptly as possible. Pedestrians use that sidewalk every day, and with the start of the school year, pedestrian traffic will increase as will our risk exposure. Personal injury to a member of the public is our greatest fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pompilio. Could I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Hannah and Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Go to General Manager Ramdeo first. General Manager, any further comments?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What I'll say is Mr. Pompilio's record of what happened, what was discussed in terms of the relocation, the easement, and the purchase is correct. The township's preference is for an easement. However, we did recognize Mr. Pompilio's concerns, and then we went through the evaluation for the purchase. The premise of the purchase, the valuation was set by an independent valuation done for the piece of land, and that was established. That's what established the value. In terms of relocating the sidewalk, potentially it could go beside the existing road. We could shift it to the existing road. It would require the rip up and rebuild of a new sidewalk and the removal of the existing mature trees along the sidewalk. Given the nature of the community, the look of the community, and the associated costs, in terms of a priority, that was deemed as the least favorable of the options, which then put the options at easement, purchase of the land as the preferred options. Mr. Pompeo preferred the purchase, and that's how we are here today with that option.
Okay, thank you. I failed to mention that I decided to pull forward 9.4 to this so that we could deal with it and let Mr. Pompilio go after we deal with this. So we're dealing with 9.4, and that was the mover and seconder to get what 9.4 says on the floor. So we're dealing with that now. Councillor Hannah. You're muted.
There you go. Thank you. I agree with Director Ramdale. I think that this is the best solution. I would like to point out one thing that, and I think maybe Mayor, you can recall as well, but there used to be a lot of complaints about the snow plow in that area, putting snow on the sidewalk, and the students couldn't walk on the sidewalk. If that sidewalk was to be a little closer to the road, I'm sure we'd have a lot more complaints because it's kind of a corner where the children walking to school have to cross at that corner as well. So I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is, and maybe the director can confirm this, but I would not want to create the impression that it was the township staff that made this error. I would suggest that we probably hired a contract back in the day, and the contractor who put the sidewalk in made this error, if you like, and put it on the resident's property. But I don't know if we have to confirm that, but I would believe that that's what happened.
Okay. And as the general manager, Councillor Hannah, not director. Any other comments? Council? Questions? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I do have a few to go through into GM Ramdale. The evaluation that was done on the property, was that done on market value or expropriation value? I'm just curious because if the lands were evaluated on a market value, this land would not be valued to anybody else in a sale. So I'm just curious how that was, how the dollar figure came to be.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. My understanding is it was done on market value as opposed to expropriation.
Did we see the valuation?
Mayor Allen, yes, we are in possession of the valuation report.
Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn. Considering that, to me, this is similar to when anybody or someone in the municipality wants to do a severance on their property, or often the municipality or county will come through and suggest that there needs to be a road widening allowance, and the expense is then borne to the homeowner, and there is no cost repaid. So for example, if you have a farm dwelling severance and there's a road widening allowance to the front of it, that cost is borne by the resident, and there is no payment to the homeowner for that road widening, which then services the community moving forward. To me, I'm seeing this as this is for a greater good. This sidewalk serves a purpose in the community. To my understanding and through what we've read, the location of the sidewalk is there because the community of the day chose to, and rightfully so, preserve some beautiful trees. So therefore, the sidewalk veers. To me, there's many options. There is not simply a purchase option, and I personally don't agree with the price or value that's being suggested here. I think that there are many incidents within the municipality, for example, the Elmville Arena, where we operate a parking lot on property that is not ours, and there is no assumption of liability to the owner of that property. So therefore, residents are continuously using the arena parking lot, and the Floss Agricultural Society does not hold any ownership as to liability because there's indemnification. So my question then becomes, this council, have we considered having an indemnification proposed on this sidewalk so that it continues as it is, so that the homeowner bears no responsibility at all on this property, and there's no cost to existing residents for this existing service to continue?
Start with General Manager Ramdale.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Going back to the first point of us getting lands for no cost through a planning application process or development application process. From what I understand, and I'll look to Director Spagnell to confirm this, from what I understand, when a development application does come in, we do have that opportunity. This is not a similar case in that it's not a development application that came in. It's a request to regularize a sidewalk. So that's what I understand in this particular case. In terms of the other aspects of the easements and the use of the property through indemnification to the owner, that is something that we looked at. Mr. Pompilio was not keen on that solution. And that's why we're here again.
Follow on.
Thank you, Marilyn. In my opinion, I find that council is sitting here tonight debating this because the paper trail from the beginning of this sidewalk is non-existent. I would like to have it on record that this council did seek indemnification and some sort of MOU with the landowner prior to negotiating a purchase and sale of this property. I think there is an opportunity for us to work with the homeowner to ensure that their insurance rates and that there is an agreement between the municipality and the homeowner that any incident on this sidewalk would not find the homeowner liable. Those exist throughout the township today. There is no cost to the existing taxpayers. I think that avenue needs to be exhausted prior to any purchase or sale being considered.
Are you putting forward an amendment as such, Deputy Mayor?
I would like to do so. I have forwarded that to the clerk. She does have it available.
Is there a seconder to this? Well, let's see the amendment if we could, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to delete the second and third paragraph of the main motion, and to add that council hereby directs staff to negotiate an easement agreement over the lands, including provisions for indemnification for the landowner in the event of an accident.
Is there a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Moore? Councillor Hanna, you had comment?
Yes, thank you. I have a little bit of trouble with Deputy Mayor's audio. So I just want to make clarifications. What the Deputy Mayor is saying, that the township put a sidewalk on taxpayers' property and that we shouldn't be compensating the taxpayer for that going forward. And if the taxpayer decides to take legal action, we're going to probably spend more taxpayers' money before it's resolved than it would cost tonight to be able to approve the purchasing of that land. It would that would be my point anyway. So I'm just not sure why we're going down this road when we have the general manager making a recommendation after doing all his work and due diligence as to how we should proceed.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And yes, I would like to provide clarification on that. At the time that this sidewalk went in, and the fact that the sidewalk moved around existing established trees, which were therefore admired by the community, that to me that would then suggest that the existing landowner, and from what I've read, has changed hands partially. The existing landowner at the time would have been aware that this was happening, that a sidewalk was being put onto their land because it was happening on their property. If that has then since changed and there is no survey or easement on record or anything available to provide that, we then should work with the existing landowner to try and find a solution that doesn't cost this. And you are correct, Councillor Hannah, if this is going to be contentious and is going to cost us more money than what it would be to move the sidewalk, we can then come to that. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have a paper trail from when this problem started. So I think that our council needs to do the diligence and start the paper trail, start the conversation today, in that our council is asking for an indemnification to move forward so that there is no liability on the existing homeowner. We have easements going through properties across the municipality. And my suggestion of I wasn't suggesting that we would, I can't even think, my apologies. My suggestion was that we would not obtain the land, that we would not offer market value because it's not marketable. It's not marketable land. So I'm not suggesting that we take this without having some fairness involved, but this parcel of land to me is not marketable. It's only valuable to us as a municipality. So it shouldn't be at fair market value. It should be at I'm sorry, Councillor Hannah, I hope that I'm able to come across to council. I just feel like there is numerous steps that need to take place before we offer a purchase for this property.
Okay, I'm going to pause here and I'll get back to you, Councillor Moore, in a sec. Any comments from Mr. Pompilio as to what we've discussed thus far? You're muted. Please unmute.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, my wife and I were the landowners when this sidewalk went in. It's probably on record that we did not support the sidewalk at all in the very first instance. I had made a number of submissions and spoke to the council at the time regarding this matter. The council at the time had indicated to us that they would work to reroute the sidewalk around the trees and to make it as pleasant as possible. But at no time, I'll make it clear to you and to council and to the deputy mayor, were we aware that that sidewalk was placed on our property. Not aware, we never agreed to it. I never would have agreed to it at the time just because of my place of mind. And I'll be honest with you, I moved on from it. I'm happy with it now. I'm not there. It was a very contentious issue and I've moved on from it. And I want to close this thing. It's a major problem for us. And the only way for us to move forward is to sell the piece of property. We're not interested in an easement, as I stated. I've had discussions with our legal already. Mr. Mahesh has also had discussions. He's aware of our position with respect to legal. And we just want to resolve this as quickly as possible. We were the landowner at the time, and we never agreed to that sidewalk being located on our property. I just want to make that crystal clear to you. So that's kind of our position. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm a little perplexed. So this is carried on for some time. I'm wondering if we should be asking for a legal opinion also. I'd like to know what our responsibility is, or what our options are, what our liabilities are, and if there is an indemnification clause, if that's something that is actually plausible. I need a bit more advice on how to make a decision moving forward.
Okay. Councillor Ritchie?
Alan, I think staff has done a good job bringing this forward with the report. They have done their due diligence, and that is why the homeowner is here tonight in agreement with this before us to move forward and purchase the land. I agree. He did not know until he did the survey. There's a lot of properties today purchased without surveys because now the lawyers insist that they get title insurance. So, and that's just a common thing in the market today. And again, speaking of market, it's market value is what you're after. That's what the appraiser did for the date. If you look at the evaluation, there'll be a date on that. Whatever date that they put on that, it'll usually run for about 6 months afterwards because the market fluctuates back and forth. If you listen to the news, the market's coming down. Whether it be coming down or going up, it's of that date that the value was put on that property. I support the report. I support the gentleman here before us, and to pay that and to be in good standing with the neighbor and to make sure that the sidewalk's safe. I support going forward with this, and I will not support no amendment, anything less. Thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It was a fairly thorough report, I must admit. However, on looking at the view from up top, and I'm looking at the sidewalk as it comes from Finley Mills over to Doran Park. There's not a huge delineation of that sidewalk from the edge of the roadway coming from Doran Park across Mr. I apologize here, I'm looking for the last name. Pompilio. And I really, it's difficult for me to see just how much of the sidewalk is on Mr. Apilio's property, because if it's the red line that goes around and you look at that sidewalk, I would suggest that you've got 2 or 3 other properties that are going to likely be in the same position.
General Manager, do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral. Approximately 65 meters of the existing sidewalk is on Mr. Pompilio's property. And along Belmont Crescent, no other property, there's no other location where the sidewalk is actually on private property. It's entirely on township property for all other areas along Belmont.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Through you, Mayor Allen, I just noticing here the hash marks, but I guess the red line that you've put on Mr. Pompilio's property kind of obscures the other line. So is it 65 meters of sidewalk is entirely on the gentleman's property?
General Manager?
Yes, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral. From the one edge of the red line to the other edge of the red line, where you see the sidewalk being behind that red line, that's the section that's on Mr. Pompilio's property. That section measures approximately 65 meters. The red line that you see there is the outline of the property boundaries.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I get the word I was stumbled on was expropriation, and my apologies for that. But I would like to reiterate that I understand that the homeowners, and thank you, Mr. Pompilio, for clarifying. I did not realize that you were the resident at the time that this was going through. I was not privy, or I am not privy to staff reports or engineering reports at the time this sidewalk was installed. I would assume that there was obviously reports of the day. I think that it would be important for us to understand that, because to me, it's very interesting that a municipality can simply go in and put a sidewalk on a homeowner's lawn without the homeowner being aware of that happening. If someone was to come across my front lawn and put a sidewalk across it, I would be aware of it happening at the time. This coming forward today, and the fact that the value that's being placed on it is at market value, I would really hope that this council can ask for staff to work with the homeowner to find a solution that is not simply us purchasing the land at market value. There seems like there may be many options between expropriation and there. I think that active transportation lanes are effective. I think that moving a sidewalk, there's lots of options, not others that I would like to consider, but simply saying that it's either purchase this land today or what? That we put a sidewalk closed sign on the sidewalk. I'm really looking to negotiate and ensure that the result is the best for the entire municipality, and that we are not just being forced into a situation where it's either purchase the land again or what. I would like to continue and have Clerk Ainsworth to reread the amendment that I've brought forward, which is simply to have the conversation begin from a ground level with the homeowner to ensure that we as a council are doing our diligence to move forward to rectify the situation.
Clerk Ainsworth, can you put up the verbiage of the amendment, please? Mr. Pompilio, go ahead. You're muted again. Can you unmute?
Mayor and Deputy Mayor, respectfully, Mahesh and I have been having this conversation for a year and a half now, since May of last year. We have looked at all the various options, and this is kind of where we are right now. I've always told Mahesh that I did not want to be confrontational. I just wanted to be treated fairly, and we have treated the township fairly. We've had very good, positive, friendly conversations without getting it on. And I don't want to go there. I just want to resolve this thing as quickly as possible. And then in my mind, there's two options here. One, move the sidewalk, or two, address the purchase of the land. You've done your due diligence. You've obtained a fair market value appraisal. The appraisal is what it is. That's what we support. If the council doesn't want to move at that, then the other option is to move the sidewalk onto your property. And that's kind of where we are with it. And I think that in all fairness, the best route is to, because you're going to be putting that sidewalk, if you don't live in Midhurst here, if you're not on Belmont Crescent and you're not seeing the traffic that's there now that flows through our community here, especially when the school is during school times, all the mothers rushing in in the morning and everybody rushing back home, the buses, the trucks that are the construction and delivery trucks that are using Belmont Crescent right now. Plus Councillor Hannah brought up another really good point of the snow service in the wintertime there. That snow plow is plowing half of the boulevard there as it comes around the curve. Like it's a hazard. It's a hazard putting people close to the road at that curve. So that's kind of I've tried to be fair. We've tried to be had good conversations. I think that we've done that, and I'd like to continue it, but my position is my position. Thank you.
I haven't heard from Councillor Mott Chapman yet.
Ellen, quick question on that picture of the aerial. Where would Mr. Pulio's property line move to on the other side of the sidewalk? And if we decide to move the sidewalk, sort of where would it be? How close to the road would it be?
General Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Mon Chapman. It would essentially be immediately adjacent to the existing roadway. Right where the trees are shown on that figure 1 within the report.
Just on that, General Manager, if you look at the, I'll get back to you in a sec, Councillor Ma. If you look at the diagram, as you're just coming from Doran towards Mr. Pompilio's property, the sidewalk goes right beside, parallel to Belmont. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor Allen, that is correct.
So that presumably would continue to be right on Mr. Pompilio's property line and then join in further down to the existing sidewalk. Is that correct?
That is correct. Around the bend to almost the property line, yes, of the second property.
And from your opinion on the snow plowing discussion that we've had thus far, what would be the impact of snow plowing if that were the route of the revised sidewalk?
Yes, Mayor Allen. Yes, it would be impacted by the snow that's pushed off by the plow, as with any sidewalk that's adjacent to the curb. From a management perspective, yeah, that's what will happen.
Okay. Follow on, Councillor Ma.
Mayor Allen, I'm just thinking, looking at that picture, if we move the sidewalk, that's awfully close to the road.
Yeah, that's I think what we're concluding. Who else had their card up before I go back to Councillor Hannah? Councillor Cabral. You're muted.
2 observations, Mayor Allen. One, I noted too, as you did, the sidewalk there does go right to the edge of the roadway. So it's kind of strange on one part of Belmont, that seems to be okay, but on the rest of it, it wasn't. The problem with moving the sidewalk and putting it at the edge of the roadway there, as Deputy Mayor Coughlin alluded to, those are mature trees. Folks don't like to see mature trees cut down. So that kind of does put a bit of a fly in the ointment as far as moving the sidewalk, unless you're going to put it right at the road's edge. I also have to point out, I am familiar with Belmont there, and I can tell you there's a lot of people who drive through there and use it to go all the way up to St. Vincent so they can get to Barrie. They come in off at 27 onto Doran Road. They drive all the way to Belmont, hang that right, go through the lights, come up the top at St. Vincent at the bottom, or at the top, I guess, if you're in Barrie, and then head on to Barrie so they can get out Cundles Road or one of those other streets. So there is a lot of traffic on that road, even though it's a residential street and you think it would be quiet. It is not. So I'm starting to think here, sir, I don't like the price. I'll be honest with you. I think 45,000 and change is an exorbitant amount for a tiny chunk of postage size piece of property. However, I have to agree that it is on his land, and unless there was some adjustment in the price, which would be nice, I'd have to say that if we're not moving it to the edge of the roadway, that we should be paying him.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that if Councillor Chapman didn't notice in the report, to move the sidewalk is going to cost us $25,000 to move the sidewalk. I don't know if you noticed that.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I would just like to reiterate that this, to me, is the beginning of a conversation. We're finding ourselves here this evening because of a lack of recording, a lack of resolutions from council. I have all respect for GM Remdeo and his team, and I'm not doubting that there has been numerous hours placed in negotiation about this. However, this council needs it recorded that we took every step possible to get to a resolution. This, to me, asking for indemnification and having this being recorded is the first step. Jumping to an end result is not responsible. I really don't feel that at all. I think that we need to start at the bottom. We need to start the basis of having an easement, having an indemnification so that there's no hazard to the homeowner, and continue to move forward from there. That's it. I'm asking us just to start at the basics and move forward. Simply as that.
Thank you. General Manager, how much did we try to go back and look at original related reports and motions and try to get a factual picture of the consideration of when this was done by the then council and
Yes, Mayor
staff?
Allen. Yes, Mayor Allen. I did go through every piece of document I could have found. I found in the archives related to this sidewalk, including references back to 1994. Most of the documents were from 2004 to about 2009. I do not recall seeing, the only thing I saw for council were reports from the then director recommending the project and for council endorsing the project as it was at that time. I did not find anything within the records that seemed to suggest that anyone was aware that it was on private property. I did not locate that.
So the assumption was it was municipal property.
I did not locate that item. I would assume so.
Okay. Councillor Cabral, then Councillor Moore.
Just a short comment, Mayor Allen. I guess the reality is we're not talking about $45,000. We're talking about $20,000. That's what it's going to cost to leave the sidewalk where it is, because it would cost us $25,000 to move it. So that's how I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, but then as you said, there are the other soft costs of tree removal and risk factors to being so close to the road and the snow implications. So Councillor Moore, then Councillor Mott-Chapman.
Thanks very much, Mayor Allen. Through you to General Manager Ramdeo. Did engineering go out there to measure? I know that we have the red line on the diagram, but do we have exact measurements of the sidewalk to the road and where that fits in compliance with what the measurements need to be? Because I know we're talking about it being too close, but do we have actual data that says, yes, that would be too close?
And I would just add to Councillor Moore's question, how many trees would have to be removed?
And that too.
For you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. The easy question, the easy answer first. 3 trees would have to go. I think 1 died and is gone since. There were 4 trees. Councillor Moore, help me understand your question a little more.
The exact measurements. Have you taken measurements of how far back from the road? I mean, we see a red line here, but we can't tell.
Is the existing sidewalk?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, we have. Further on in the report, there is a diagram which shows the reference survey of the affected land. We did have a surveyor go out and measure the exact location of the sidewalk relative to the property boundary. And that's how we were able to demarcate the section of land that would be necessary for us to purchase.
Okay, so, but,
yeah.
okay, you go ahead and re-express it, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, because what I was asking, and I may not have asked it properly, but what I was wanting to know is what is the exact measurement from the roadside to the sidewalk that would keep us in compliance with all the other sidewalks in our municipality? And is it possible to do here? Because I just don't want to rely on this diagram.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Moore. I'll paraphrase what I think you're asking, and if that is correct, I'll answer. I think you're asking that, is there a standard that limits how close you can put a sidewalk to a road, the edge of a roadway? And if that's the question.
That's part A, and then she wants a number.
There is no standard. It could be immediately adjacent to the existing roadway. There would have to be safety considerations. So it would have to be a raised edge of road so that no car can easily jump the curb, so to speak. But there's no stipulation that how far it should be or could be.
Okay,
That's from the-
re-expressing that from the road, how far away could the roadside of the sidewalk be and not be on Mr. Pompilio's property?
That I'll have to verify, but I am seeing that it would be, I'm guesstimating here about 1 meter away, 1.5 meter away. But it would be right smack in the middle of where the existing trees are. So whichever way the trees will go.
Did you follow on, Councillor Moore?
Well, I'm considering the cost to remove 3 trees versus and then the cost to move the sidewalk. But if it's still in compliance, it's a lot less expensive.
General Manager, presumably in that 25,000 in the report to move the sidewalk did not include the cost of removing trees?
Mayor Allen, my consideration in that 25,000 is that our existing staff will take those trees down, or will, right? So minimal cost for us to do that. Yeah, minimal costs. The consideration on the removal of the trees, as you mentioned earlier, it would be the soft aspects of it.
So we are looking at then at 25,000 versus 46,000 rounded.
That is correct, Mayor Allen.
Okay, who had their card up next in order, please? I know Councillor Ritchie, then Councillor Mott Chapman, then Councillor Hannah. Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, I just wanted to point out that, like we're debating this, and of course 25,000 to move the sidewalk, but the cost of it and the numbers here, that they, keep in mind that homes in this area, like the price of real estate in the Midhurst area is expensive, and don't hold me to it, but you could be anywhere from 900 to $1.5 million or more. Again, don't hold me to the numbers. So, to ask what they've done an appraisal, they've taken the look, they've done their due diligence. This gentleman's here tonight. He's acted in good faith. If we don't do it tonight, he could walk away and say, no, I don't want to deal with this. So, why don't we in good faith accept this and move forward? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mott Chapman.
Alan, I was going to ask what the trees where Councilor Moore did and ask that question. My other thought, if we go back to square one, like Deputy Mayor suggested, what I do agree with, but if it's going to take us, say, another year, I'm afraid, I don't know how the market value works, but I'm afraid if the market value goes up, then we're going to be spending a lot more than 45,000.
Okay, General Manager, how recently was the appraisal done? What was the date of the appraisal?
Yes, Mayor Allen. The date of the appraisal is May 11th, 2022.
Oh, so in May. Okay, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind council that those are massive trees there. They're beautiful trees. It'd be a shame to cut them down. And the safety factor with the children walking to school and the snow plowing, things we got to consider. And as Councilor Corbell pointed out, it's we're talking $20,000 difference in doing this. And I know it's $20,000, and I'm always the one that argues too to save taxpayers money. But I think in this position, we have an obligation. And keep in mind, we've been using a taxpayer's property for a number of years, and we're not being charged any rent, if you like.
Okay, so we have a motion amendment on the floor. No, I see no other yellow cards. Can you put up that amendment again, please, Clerk Ainsworth? Can you read it, please?
The motion now before council be amended as follows: to delete the second and third paragraph and add that council hereby directs staff to negotiate an easement agreement over the lands, including provisions for indemnification for the landowner in the event of an accident.
Okay. Any further questions before we go to vote on this?
Recorded vote, please.
Councillor Cabral?
Mayor Allen, I'm not an expert in municipal law, but I think you have to meet certain criteria to force somebody to accept an easement. I don't know whether CAO Schmidt's in a position to answer that through you, obviously, or maybe Director Spagnol might be able to answer that, but I don't think you can just arbitrarily force someone to take an easement if there's an alternative to that easement. So I'm just curious to know where we sit on that aspect of it before we go forward with this motion.
Okay, CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I am not a legal expert by any means. So further to, I believe Councillor Moore referenced it earlier, referring it to our legal counsel for further follow-up would be my position as well on this.
Okay, do we want that then built into the motion amendment? Clerk Ainsworth, can you make reference to that about seeking legal advice with respect to this matter, basically? Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I was going to offer to make another adjustment to the amendment if I needed to.
Did you want to make that now or it's covered?
I'm not sure if Clerk Ainsworth needs me to, or does adding the piece for a legal opinion?
Oh yeah, I think she's working on that now.
As mover and seconder, I'm open to the friendly amendment to encompass that.
Okay, go ahead, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I've simply added at the end of that amendment and that a legal opinion be sought on the matter.
Okay. Everybody clear? A recorded vote. A request to from Councillor Ma Chapman, please. Go ahead.
Just a question on that amendment. If it passes and we seek legal, it would come back and it could be at the same table as we're having now, correct?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, recorded vote, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. And as a reminder, this is a recorded vote for the amendment only. Once I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral.
Fortunately, I have to say no.
Councillor Ritchie.
No.
Councillor Ma Chapman.
Yes.
My apologies. Could you repeat that?
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Hannah.
No.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Yes.
And Mayor Allen.
Yes.
That amendment is carried.
Main motion then?
The main motion would read that the report from the General Manager, Infrastructure and Operational Services regarding the purchase of land for Sidewalk to Belmont Crescent dated September 7th, 2022 be received. And that council hereby directs staff to negotiate an easement agreement over the lands, including provisions for indemnification for the landowner in the event of an accident, and that a legal opinion be sought on the matter.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mr. Pompilio, thank you very much for presenting to us, and we want to continue to work with you and be fair to the taxpayers as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As it is 10 p.m., we have an automatic adjournment. We would need a motion moved and seconded to extend the meeting.
Please go ahead. Mover. Councillor Moore, seconded. Councillor Ma Chapman. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Let me just get back to this purchase of land. So we're back up to the minutes. Just speeding through this stuff. Minutes. 7.1, minutes of council. Mover and seconder to approve these, please. Councillor Cabral. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. Special meeting, August 3, 2022. Special meeting, closed session, August 3, 2022. Regular meeting, council, August 3, 2022. All those in favor? That is carried. 7.3, minutes of boards, committees, and organizations. Mover and seconder. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received for information. The Hillsdale Community Recreation Association, August 17, 2022, and the draft minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board meeting of August 26, 2022. All those in favor? It's carried. Minutes of dissolved committees. This is catching up on old minutes on the committees that we dissolved. 7.4, mover and seconder. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma Chapman. The minutes of the dissolved committees listed herein be approved as presented. Community Broadband Committee meeting of Feb 15, 2022. Economic Development Advisory Committee, April 20, 2022. Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Ad Hoc Committee, April 25, 2022. Finance and Audit Advisory Committee, June 7, 2021. Grants Advisory Committee, May 5, 2022. Planning and Development Advisory Committee, April 28, 2021. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, correspondence and information item. Been a while since we've had something under this category. 8.1 is the letter, read the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Let's get this, mover and seconder, get this on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Okay, I was going to get this spoken to first. Councillor Hanna, do you want to make a comment first?
Yeah, just for clarification, I support this, but I believe the provincial government's already passed this, have they not?
Well, that's what, am I going to CAO Schmidt on this to start the discussion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hanna. I'd have to defer that, Councillor Hanna, to Clerk Ainsworth. I know we were following it last week, but I have lost track, to be honest with you. So I'm not sure if it actually has received final adoption by the province.
Sorry, Clerk Ainsworth, I should have gone to you first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just looking at the status online. So it has been debated at committee and received third reading on September 7th. Today, it received third reading today.
Okay, anything further you want to add to this before we open up discussion, Clerk Ainsworth?
No, nothing further to add, Mayor Allen.
Councillor Hanna?
So passing a third reason, I believe that's the law now, but I might be mistaken.
Is it, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I do believe so, actually.
Huh. Moot point, and it passed, did it? Okay, I see other cards up. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think it may have passed, but it needs to be proclaimed, if I'm not mistaken, before it can be enforced. And I just want clarification. My understanding was that the Strong Mayors legislation was specific to, I believe, Ottawa and Toronto. It wasn't all encompassing. So
that is true, but there was some discussion at AMO and some reference by the Premier that they'd be looking to expand that beyond those cities. Clerk Ainsworth?
My apologies, Mayor Allen. It does still require royal assent, which is strictly ceremonial, just to actually have the legislation enacted. But as far as it going through the House or through Parliament, it's passed all of its steps through Parliament.
So given that, what are your suggestions? Read the motion as it is stated. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It does, the motion does state or request that the province put a halt on enacting the legislation. As Councillor Cabral mentioned, there are still regulations and whatnot that haven't been put into effect and haven't been provided. Should council still wish to take a stance on the legislation, it could be worded as such, should council wish to move forward that way. It would really be up to council to decide.
Okay, I'll open it up for comments, discussion. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you to council. And if it's the desire of council to pull this or have me as a mover withdraw it, I'm happy to do so. However, this motion in itself was quite alarming to me, as this was provincially mandated to allow one member of council to have more power than others, whether it's a veto or what it is, and then to have a guise where it was pushed forward through housing and a housing initiative, but allowed powers to a mayor. We are all one vote at a table, and it essentially defeats the whole premise of democracy, in my opinion. So I think that this is an absolute unfortunate circumstance, and to me, to push it down as strong mayors and to have it pushed forward at a conference or through a housing crisis, that this was going to provide more housing and basically open a door to allow veto powers to mayors that far supersede development. It's scary. I think that if this council is still willing to draft a motion that suggests that we feel that all members of council should have equal voice at a table, that in itself speaks volumes. Thank you, Councillor Hanna, for bringing it to our attention that it was passed today. I was not aware of that. I would like to still have the opportunity to have our voice heard as an equal voice, because I do believe that as elected officials, we each carry one vote at this table, and under no circumstances, whether it's housing or any other initiative, we're all one voice.
Okay, other comments? Okay, so we have the motion as stated. Do we feel that there's any need to adjust that before voting on this? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So the motion, we have a mover and seconder, and we do, don't we, Clerk Ainsworth? Yes. With correspondence from the Township of Wasaga Beach regarding the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act dated August 19th, 2022 be received, that the Township of Springwater hereby supports the position of the town of Wasaga Beach. Be it resolved that the Township of Springwater requests the province of Ontario to put a halt on enacting the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act until consultation with Ontario municipalities is conducted, and further that this resolution be sent to the Premier of Ontario, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and all Simcoe County municipalities. All those in favor? That is carried. Action reports. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma Chapman. So we've dealt with 9.4, so it's 9.2, 9.3. Any questions or comments of 9.2 or 9.3? The action items be received and that recommendation contained therein be approved as presented. 9.2, 2022 Municipal and School Board Election Joint Compliance Audit Committee, appointment of committee and approval of terms of reference. And the 9.3 award of tender 2022-28 PW Hasty Track Water Main Site Servicing. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to information reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. Comments on any of these? I'd like to comment on 3, the Crystal Homes. I know this is information report, but they certainly have jacked up the units back up towards another 116 units. I understand there's going to be a public meeting on this on September 26th. And certainly the developer has gone ahead and had a full-scale sales program in effect. And we still don't know the details of the water and wastewater management, nor has it been forwarded to our engineers, so Ainley hasn't had anything to be able to comment. I think that there's going to be the need for environmental assessment with respect to water and wastewater. Certainly the residents of Hillsdale are very upset about this. As the report states, there needs to be specifics on how the developer is going to proposes to deal with community amenities to support the new development, including fire station block details, sanitary connection to the school, centralized park conveyance with the school, additional parkland that confirms saving the big tree that is there, improved drop-off lanes on Street A, all of which was referred to in the report. So I encourage the public to get informed about this and submit their thoughts in advance of the September 26th public meeting, which will be, further details will be forthcoming from the township. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder we have a mover and seconder for these, that the report items listed herein be received as information. Building Services Monthly Activity Report, May, June, July 2022. The Bylaw Services Monthly Activity Report, July 2022. RR 2022-002, 2022-003, and ZB 2022-013, Fernbrook Crystal Homes, Hometown, Hillsdale, be received for information. All those in favor? That is carried. Verbal reports. Director Spagnell, we had a good meeting on the official plan update earlier today. Anything further on economic development updates?
Nothing new to report, Mayor Allen. Thank you.
Thank you. Midhurst Development Update, General Manager Ramdale.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. I shall begin this evening's update with the new home construction. The builders are moving ahead with the construction works. And as of earlier today, we had issued 249 building permits for the mixed subdivision. As of today, the builders project that the first 20 new Springwater homeowners will move into their homes in December of this year. Over the next few months and before the new residents take possessions of their homes, the developers will complete the acoustic fencing, the stormwater pond, and the community playground, including the play structures. And that will be done before the first resident moves in. Moving on to Wilson Drive, we had hoped to reopen the roadway before Labor Day, but the contractor asked for consideration due to the sad occurrence in Barrie, and essentially out of an abundance of caution. They did not prefer to have an open excavation similar to what the issue was in Barrie. Earlier today, I was discussing with the developer, and they've committed to working overtime and on Saturdays to ensure that Wilson is fully reopened on or before September 16th of this month. Over on the east side of Bayfield, as councillors have noted earlier, the earthworks are on their way, and these works will extend for several weeks more. That brings me to the end of this evening's update. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, Mayor Allen, to Mahesh, the mixed subdivision. If they're going to be moving in December, is the water and sewers going to be ready, available for it? For obviously they're hooked up to it. Is the water and sewers going to be ready?
General Manager,
for those deadlines?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Ritchie. The developer has committed and is confident that the water and the wastewater plants will be up, will be commissioned, and will be ready by the end of November of this year.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to General Manager Ramdale. Just a quick question on the earthworks that's happening over on the east side. Is all of that dirt staying on site? And do you have a plan for or a date for when it would be moved off site, and which maybe what route that would be?
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. All of that topsoil will remain on site. It will not leave the site. So there's no date to remove it. That's the commitment we have.
Okay, all right.
Deputy Mayor Coburn.
Thank you, Mayor. There is no county update to report, but I did want to pass along to GM Ramdale that members of the public did acknowledge and pass along appreciation for staff and our sensitivity to the situation in Barrie. So thank you for that, and also to yourself and Christine for your ongoing communication with residents as to the status of Wilson. I think now more than ever we've realized how much Wilson Road is part of our lives, and we do look forward to it being opening, but we do appreciate the sensitivity in the situation and do appreciate the decision that was made by staff.
Thank you. Moving on to municipal updates. Any municipal updates? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Mayor Allen, as you probably all know, Minising did have their annual snow pitch tournament. Again, from not having any for the last 2 years, they had 24 teams. Rained a little bit on Sunday, but that didn't stop them. And the dance had over 400 people because we had security and they were counting. All in all, it was a really good turnout.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other municipal updates? Moving on to item 12, notices of motion. Any notices of motion? Item 13, any items for future consideration? Moving on to item 14.1 is the bylaws. I would like to pull the council remuneration and expense policy bylaw and have that voted on separately. Can I have a mover and seconder for the others, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ma Chapman. Any comments before we go ahead with the others? It reads the motion that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2022-067 authorized purchase of land, sidewalk. Oh, we can't do that one, obviously. So we're pulling that, Clerk Ainsworth? Yeah, so that one is pulled. So we're talking 2022-075 public access automatic external defibrillator program policy. 2022-076 established joint audit committee. 5000-360 ZB 2022-012 Huron Creek, and 5000-361 ZB 2022-009 O'Brien. All those in favor?
Geez.
That is carried. And moving separately on bylaw 2022-074, which is the council remuneration and expense policy. All those in favor of that? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We would require a mover and seconder, please.
Mover and seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, seconder. Councillor Ma Chapman, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Confirmatory bylaw, mover and seconder. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma Chapman, that bylaw 2022-077 to confirm and adopt proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on September 7, 2022, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Cabral, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at, joke I missed, Councillor Moore? 10:21.
I'm getting late.
10:21 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on September 21, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everybody.